I know you're most probably getting tired of seeing me in a suit, and frankly, I'm getting tired of pretending that I'm not a peasant who only wears a suit when his wife makes him or when he's doing something for work. But I am at the Dolder Grand in Zurich, and this is one of the most impressive and expensive hotels I've ever been in. I think the artwork on the subsurface level alone is most probably worth more than all of the real estate my entire bloodline owns combined. So I had to wear a suit, but also I am here for work. I'm here at a mining conference. This one is organized by the SMI, that's the Swiss Mining Institute, and the Bailly family, so thank you for having me. And I think this is one of the largest mining conferences in continental Europe. There were over 100 companies here over the past 2 days, and it was a very busy 2 days of meetings, I think, for everyone. Everyone was running around and just, again, very busy, so there wasn't much room left for interviews. But I wouldn't be your favorite online annoying ginger interviewer if I didn't try to interview at least a couple of people and ask them what they're doing here, why they're spending shareholders' money on conferences and what they hope to get out of them, and why they think the sentiment in the junior mining remains depressed, what's going to change and stuff like that. Also, a lot of the guest speakers that were here, I managed to speak to them. So that probably means I should shut up by now and get up on out of your face and let you watch the interviews. All right, Ronnie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. How are you feeling the sentiment? I mean, this is the beginning of the second day. You had a busy day of meetings and running around yesterday. You gave a good presentation. How's the sentiment here at this conference?
Well, actually, if I wouldn't know that the price of gold is trading around 2,700, actually, based on the sentiment, I would say we're trading like somewhere like 1,500, because you don't see like champagne bottles popping. Do
you normally see champagne bottles?
Not in this industry. I mean, we've got two funds that combine Bitcoin with gold. And there's a little bit of a different attitude in the crypto scene, obviously, especially celebrating all-time highs. But I think, it's actually a pretty positive sign that we're far away from irrational exuberance, from extreme optimism, everybody going crazy with new price targets, and tons of liquidity flooding into the junior market. So I think that's a pretty healthy sign. And also I attended the Precious Metal Summit last week, did two keynotes there, and I said, actually, relax, because everybody was talking about the gold crash, gold being down $200. I said, come on, last year at that time of the year, gold was trading at 1,900. Now we're trading at 2,600. So I think it's just a healthy development. It's a correction. We're taking a breather, but that's just normal over the course of a bull market. And what should you do in a bull market? And I think the strength of this bull market is really impressive, because every major dip is being bought. I think you should do your homework, pick up names that you like, quality names that have corrected like 15-20% over the last couple of weeks. So I'm fairly relaxed in our funds. We're already building positions again. We've found some bargains over the last couple of days, meeting roughly 40 companies.
Oh, well, 40 is a lot. I do want to talk about some of these companies maybe later on, but what do you make of that price action that you just mentioned earlier? I mean, gold and silver have been interesting these last couple of weeks. Is that telling you something? Is it signaling something more about the broad market? What's really driving this price action?
Well, I would say, first of all, I think that the reason why gold came down, what was it, like 8-9%, was that actually the war premium was being priced out after the Trump election. I think the market also looked for kind of a reason for gold to trade lower after this huge move. But then on the other hand, I think we shouldn't forget that the dollar index since October, starting of October, is actually up almost 7%, which is a huge move for the dollar. So I think it is mostly dollar driven. It is, of course, based on this war premium being priced out, and then on the other hand, I think what actually the underperformance of the mining sector basically confirms our view that we presented in this year's In Gold We Trust report, called the New Playbook, because we said actually the marginal gold buyer is not in the Western world anymore, it's in emerging markets, and those numbers of the demand numbers, the growth of gold demand coming from emerging markets is just staggering. but they prefer physical gold. They don't buy ETFs and they don't buy mining stocks. So I think this is one of the reasons why actually mining stocks have been, I would say, pretty shown a pretty underwhelming performance. Let's put it that way.
That's putting it mildly. If you look at my portfolio, what you were one of the, or I think the best predictor of gold on the Bloomberg. What did you predict? Like 2,700.
2,700, yeah.
Right, and you were bang on. What do you see for the next 12 months? What do you see it going? You know, it's kind of a crystal ball question, but.
Well, actually, you know, this 2,700 was first of all based on the technical breakout from this cup and handle pattern. So that was a measured move, but then we also have like a gold price model that we presented in 2020, and it was really spot on. And it says $2,660 US dollars by the end of the year. Now, of course, I mean, we should always take those models with a grain of salt, but I think the direction is crystal clear. We're in a bull market. I think we're in a bull market that the majority of Western financial investors hasn't participated in, because if you have a look at physical gold demand, actually from Europe, but also from the US, it's actually pretty weak. Germany is down 60%. So I would say that we're seeing profit taking for the people that kind of get it, that held gold for a while. They're saying, okay, well, let's take some profits. I think there's many people that I talk, and that's kind of the retail crowd. They need the cash, so they're selling their gold to raise some cash because of inflation. But we haven't attracted like new gold buyers because everybody's getting so used of all those crises happening. So I think the Western investors are now, I think they missed the party. They're kind of waiting outside, waiting to buy the dip. But then on the other hand, when I talk to institutional players saying, well, gold has corrected a bit, are you buying now? They say, no, we think we've already seen the top. So it's we don't see this FOMO yet. On the other hand, we don't see any anti-cyclical buying behavior in the Western world. But I think, first of all, weakness in the US dollar will be a major driver of this next leg up in the gold price. Then, on the other hand, of course, the debt situation, some sort of a Liz Truss moment in the United States. And then thirdly, I think this will be the reasons why Western gold investors will at some point come back. We've seen some mild inflows into the gold ETFs, but actually in October we've seen major outflows. Silver is the same. Silver investment demand is down 15% this year. At some point it's going to happen. I don't know if equity markets will have to break lower for that to happen. But I think actually that's a pretty long monologue without answering your question. I'm sorry. You
said 600 by the end of this year. What about by the end of next year? Do you predict that far out?
I would say that I'm not super bullish. I'm kind of a bearish bull at the moment.
Okay.
I would say we will try to establish like a new bottom between somewhere like 2,400 to 2,600. So that would be like a trading range over the next couple of months, that I would say. And that should be a pretty healthy setup for the next leg higher. I mean, everybody's obviously talking about Trump. His the first term was pretty positive. We saw a CAGR of, I think, 16% over those 4 years. And actually my long-term target, and this is what we presented in our 2020 report, we said at the end of this decade, so in 2030, we're seeing the price of gold roughly at $4,800 US dollars. Now that sounds like really far-fetched, but that's a CAGR of 9.1% until the end of this decade, which is, I think, highly realistic. So we've got 80 trillion wealth management industry, and I think it's still widely underinvested in gold, and I think that's going to change at some point.
You're not one of those. You're widely invested in gold. What exactly is it? What are you getting exposure to? Are there any particular names that you've recently been picking up yourselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that I think gold is often being regarded as a religion, as some sort of a cult, and we as an asset manager, we try to keep the emotions out. So we put out a special paper recently talking about the optimal gold allocation, which is roughly 14 to 18%. If you own like 2%, it doesn't make any difference for your portfolio, but if you own like 40%, that's probably actually too much, based on our calculations. So we clearly differentiate between what we call safe haven gold, which is physical gold stored, perhaps outside of the banking industry, outside of your jurisdiction, no counterparty risk, or as little counterparty risk as possible. And then on the other hand, we say, okay, there's also a case for performance gold, which is mining stocks, for example, gold and silver mining stocks, but they have to be actively timed. So this is kind of our approach. And when we say, okay, mining stocks, unfortunately, aren't like, long only, just buy it and wait 10 years and you're gonna end up rich. Not really. You have to be a really brilliant stock picker, but you really have to play the cycles. Like everything that can go wrong will go wrong in the world of mining. So I think, understanding the cycle is, from our point of view, actually more important than stock picking. So we don't have any geologists in our team, but what we really focus on is managing the downside, avoiding those 70-80% drawdowns that we often see in this industry. And based on our signal that we've been working on for 2 years, now we're having a green light. So we are playing offensively. We're in the silver space, we're buying small cap names, we're participating in private placements, but there will be a time actually, and our signal will tell us, probably not at the top, but again, we won't have like a 70% drawdown. There will be a time to be more cautious again, raise cash, perhaps go into the larger names, the royalty and streaming names. There's a couple of really interesting corporate bonds in the gold industry. So now we're playing offensively, but we're very, very actively following the market, and I think there could be a time over the next couple of quarters when you should actually raise some cash again.
And it is particularly the small cap names that you're focusing on right now, or is it like, and what is small cap? Because for me, small cap would be 5 to 10 million. I suppose for you that's kind of different.
No, I mean it's small cap start for us at 20 million.
Okay.
So from 20 up to 100 million. Then we've got the mid caps up to 500, and everything above is large caps.
Okay.
So we've got different risk buckets. Obviously, for the small cap names, we usually allocate 50 basis points of our fund, so 0.5%. Into those small cap names, and the problem obviously is liquidity. It's like with Prismo, it's easy to get in, but it's hard to get out, and we're seeing really weak liquidity in some of those names, even actually in the mid cap names. So managing a fund that's actually quite an issue these days, and I hope that we will see demand picking up. For the Canadian names, I have to say I'm seeing quite a divergence between the Canadian names and the Australian names. Found some really, really interesting Australian companies here, and it seems that from a capital markets perspective, the Aussies are doing a slightly better job than the Canadians at the moment.
Yeah, that's for sure. Getting quite cold outside. You didn't want to put on your jacket. I told you should, it's
the Wim Hof
exactly.
kind of interview.
But thank you so much for doing this. We should sit down for a longer conversation soon.
Anytime. Thank you very much for all the work that you do. Thank you, Antonio.
I'm standing here with Colin Paget of Founders Metals. I was about to ask you how the sentiment has been at this conference, but that's maybe not a fair question for you, because sentiment is almost easy for you, having your stock price go from lower left to upper right. But how is it? How's the general mood, sentiment, vibe, whatever you want to call it?
I'd say here at SMI it's been really positive overall. I mean, we've had a number of great meetings, and a few of them have been with shareholders that have been in as early as the 20-cent days, and but a lot of meetings with new people that know the story, understand the story, and I mean, there's real interest. So it's been good. Yeah.
So do you have some people that are kind of still on the sidelines with founders, and they're like, oh, I want to know this, and then maybe I jump in, or is it, because you say you're meeting new people that know the story but are not yet in, what are they waiting for?
I mean, some people are just people who haven't they're just hearing about it now, or so the stories just come to them, and there's still lots of that out there. Other people, everyone has a reservation here and there, and it takes meeting me or meeting one of my team to kind of work through that or have it understood. So.
What is, this is, maybe you don't like talking about this, but what is the biggest reservation that people have? Like, what are they wondering about? What's kind of the pushback maybe that you get? Because I can find, and I'm sincerely asking, because I can find little pushback. What are people finding?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple that we've gotten recently, or get quite a bit. One was metallurgy, but we've just put that out today. We have excellent metallurgy. That's come together really nicely, so that one's no longer too much of an issue for people. The other big one has been infrastructure. I mean, there's no hiding it, we're in the jungle, so we've had a lot of questions about that, kind of throughout. But I think bringing in B2 as a partner, certainly validates that aspect of it. They're not getting involved in a project that they don't see a future in, and all of those infrastructure questions ultimately come down to grade and ounces.
Yeah, I thought being in junior mining meant everybody's in the jungle all the time.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Kinda. What have you put out? I haven't been able to look at my phone today all day, just running around. What's happening on the metallurgy side? What have you put out?
So really just a follow-up to the June results. We did some early kind of bottle roll cyanidation tests in the June stuff, 91 to 96%. It's just a follow-on from that with combination testing, cyanidation, optimization work, and a little bit of work on the tailings as well.
Okay.
Ultimately 95, 96+% recoveries and everything. No preg robbing, nothing deleterious. It's pretty simple ultimately, and it's what you'd expect. I mean, we had some photos in some earlier press releases. We got them in this one too. It's fracture fill, pre-gold, and it's pretty easy.
Is that where you think metal recoveries are going to stay 96, 97%? Is there a possibility for them to go higher, or could they, once you start moving towards testing on a larger scale, could they scale back a little bit?
Honestly, I think looking at some of the comparable deposits in the area, I think that with more work, because it's still very preliminary, I think there's a good chance of seeing it go higher. But I mean, we're talking % or two here at that point. But happy to have it where it is, and with more work, that's what I predict.
Well, okay, so pitching the story here and walking people through these things and helping them go past their reservations, maybe. How have you found it? Has it been worth it for you to fly all the way here? Is this a good use of your marketing dollar? Because I know you're selective with marketing. So how do you know this was good ROI? Honestly,
so the first time at SMI for me, and it has been very much worth the dollars. I mean, it's twofold. I mean, there's the meetings at the conference, there's everything around the conference, but then there's the people that you meet outside of it, meetings that get set up that are in the city outside and away from the conference, but because you're in the area, you're able to do those face-to-face things. And we always find value in traveling and getting out away from home a lot. Travel quite a bit, but we do see value.
Well, what is the thing that people then on the other side? What do people like? What are people the most attracted to? Is it the high grade story? Is it gold as a metal? Is it kind of a new jurisdiction pioneering it? What are people attracted to the most?
I mean, everybody likes high grade. I think jurisdictionally, I mean, there's definitely some attraction there. You remove some of the geopolitical risk of, say, the West African end of the spectrum. There's not the permitting risk of the Canadian, North American type model. So a bit of a sweet spot there. Beyond that, I think for the property and the project, it's just the potential scale. I mean, with brand new discovery at Lower Antino, really kind of starts to show kind of proof of concept that, look, there's multiple things on this 200 square kilometer land package. There's opportunity to find quite a lot more. So.
Been a while really since you and I have done a kind of a deep dive, so maybe we should do that soon. How's the relationship going with B2? Are you guys talking often? Is there any involvement from them kind of on the operational level, or they let you do your thing?
Completely let us do our thing, and there's no strings attached to their investment per se, but I mean, we wanted to have an active partner, and so as far as being involved with their technical team, we invite input where they can add. It's always good to have another geologist's opinion, because every geologist has a different one, but we get quite a lot out of that relationship. Generally speaking, I mean, there's no real asymmetry of information. I don't have any great deal of access to something that other people in our data room say might not, but they definitely, we're very happy to be partners with B2.
I don't assume you need any money anytime soon. How's the treasury looking?
We're at $36 million. Yeah, so we're good. We've got about $25 million planned for 60,000 meters of drilling in 2025. So that leaves us even at the end of that with a decent chunk of change in the till, and I think lots of flexibility.
Yeah. I suppose we could speculate here a little bit, but is that the end all be all? As in those 50,000 meters you say? 60,000 meters. Is that it? I mean, when you drill that, do you expect to be taken out by the time you've drilled it? Is that, we're speculating here, forward looking, but what's kind of your gut feeling? What are you thinking about?
I mean, I think the 60,000 really, our focus is going to be on the exploration side of the equation. So pushing the limits of the things we already know, Upper Antino, Lower Antino, Buese, that sort of thing. But trying to get more meters into new things. Lawa out to the east, some stuff that's recently become pretty interesting to us that's further southeast of Buese. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity to take the meters in 2025 and demonstrate what the real potential here is. And then after that, start looking at, okay, well, how do we define this and where do we take it to make it a more attractive, or to get us to that acquisition standpoint. Yeah.
Talking about gut feelings and feelings as a whole here, how would you feel if there was a takeover offer on the table right now? Is this too early in the story? Do you have too much work to do before being taken out? How would you feel if there was an offer on the table tomorrow?
Well, I think right now it's too early. That said, I mean, there's a price for everything at any given time. So I mean, that would be evaluated on its own merit, sort of thing. But I think there's a lot to be uncovered and a lot of value to be added from where we are today, and that's what I see the 2025 plan really unveiling or revealing for the property. Hopefully, we can see some additional growth in the land package piece as well. And yeah, I think after that, it's probably a bit more appropriate. But yeah, take it as they come.
I would claim that part of the founder's success story, and hopefully we can do kind of a reverse engineer podcast or whatever, deep dive on the founder's story soon, but I would claim that part of the success has been the speed at which you've been operating and the cadence of the assay results. For the 60,000 meters, can you keep that up? Can you still have assays coming out as quickly as you have?
Yeah, we can. And so like the turnaround time hasn't changed with the lab. It's still 2 to 3 weeks on that front. Nice. We've changed our model a little bit. It used to be every 2 weeks it was drill results, and that was honestly hole by hole at that point. The scale that we are now, that's not really the way it will operate going forward, but I think we'll still wind up having kind of a, say, 3-week average on assay results for drilling over the course of the year. We're now drilling multiple different targets, new things, expanding things that we already understand quite well. I mean, there will be that continuous news flow. It'll be a busy year.
When do you think that starts? You say a busy year, so I'm assuming you're talking 2025. Does it start in Q1?
It starts in 2024. We've got 2 more press releases by the end of the year with drill results. So we'll do, the next one probably will be Upper Antino, Buese stuff. And then, we've got the thing I mentioned a little further southeast. We're kind of excited about what we're seeing there. So if we get assays back in time, hopefully we get something out on that as well by the end of the year. So.
What are you going to do if you run out of dessert names to give to your targets?
That's a good question. Right now I think we're evaluating that. We want to keep the names, easy to pronounce for people. We get some feedback on some of the older ones, but
Well, might as well go to T-Bone Steak Route. That's Colin Paget of Founders Metals. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Yeah, thanks for
All right, Gerard, last time I saw you was in Beaver Creek. We talked a little bit about the sentiment and what you were doing at that conference. What about this conference here in Europe? How's the sentiment between Beaver Creek and the sentiment you're finding here in Europe?
I think, when you ask about sentiment, I don't think you can compare those two conferences. You go to Beaver Creek and you got a chance of having maybe, it's very open. There's all kind of people. All the company looking for assets are also there. So you have company meetings and everything. This is more like focusing on investor that like the sector. I think Manuel does a very good job about attracting a lot of good investor, sometimes knowledgeable, sometimes not, but doesn't matter. I think they're looking for investing in those type of company. And in my mind, it's one of the best.
Yeah. What do you think it's going to take to turn the sentiment in the junior mining space, though? Because you say, and I agree, that this is a good conference and people are asking questions and it's busy, it looks good. But we still have that disconnect where the metal prices are going up, but the juniors not so much. But when the metal prices start going down, then juniors all of a sudden have a correlation and start going down. What's going to break that? What's going to push juniors higher?
Look, it took 1 year to get 45% increase in gold price. The major went up by 20, 25%, 30%. And gold price goes down 10 after the election, U.S. election, and then you see the correlation. The major are back with the price they were like a year ago. So that 25% got erased completely. You're not going to see the junior. The junior market is the last one that's going to wake up. You really need to have patience. If you invest in a junior, your window is not 6 months or 12 months, or it could be 2 years, 3 years. That's the way I see it. I don't make the market, and the market are way too big to be able to influence them. We need to adapt to them. And the reality is so simple. I mean, gold is, again, over $2,600, but we know very well that $2,550 was the first support.
Yeah.
It didn't break it and bounced back, which is good. But until, the new president or the new government is in place in the U.S., you may see something more sideways, I would say.
Okay.
Because we don't know what he's going to be doing. And even if he's told everyone that what he's going to be doing. So the gold price could be in a bracket of $2,550 to $2,650 for some time.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see any people investing in junior. In my mind, from my own perspective, I don't predict anything. I can just digest what I see. And what I see is that it ain't going to move in the next 2 months.
Well, it was interesting. You and I were talking off mic, and I started asking, like, how's the reception here? What are you getting out of what other meetings that you're doing? And I asked you, when do you think we're actually going to start seeing, people being happy? And you say
M&A.
we need to see,
M&A.
Talk to me about that.
I think there's only 2 catalysts that can move the junior these days. Say within the next 3 months, 6 months. You make a big discovery yourself, okay? You create more value. You wake up the major. Majors are, I don't want to be targeting them, but their main focus is make money. It's not like finding gold. They're usually not very good at it. It's not because I say that. I work at Barrick for 12 years. We were good at finding gold, but we still need to buy, because when you mine, say, or you produce, say, 5 million ounces a year, you need to find 5 to replace, and you need to find 5 to grow.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending story. So think about finding 10 million ounces yourself every year. It is not very easy.
No.
So then the major look into M&A. We just see a deal this week. Orla buying an operation. Great deal for Newmont. But that's the price that goes out. They pay more. If 800 divided by 1.4 million ounces is what? So they pay roughly $600 an ounce for a built-in mine. That's the value, right?
Yeah. That's what the market is telling you.
Yeah.
What about you? Something else that you said a minute ago that got me interested was that we might see capitulation. So juniors might literally start running out of money.
That would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Or more fusion between good assets. There's no money in the system. When people ask me if there's a market, there's no market. If my stock is 5 cents and it trades 50,000 shares in one day, even a million share is only $50,000 value. Think about it.
Yeah.
There's no people putting money back in the market. Is it because of the recession that we're just coming out? We just had 2 years of pandemic, 2 years of recession. And where do people make the money? Maybe if they put in Bitcoin and they love Bitcoin. I just saw a forecast of $200,000 of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is out of nothing. There's nothing behind Bitcoin except wasting energy building it. There's no value.
Yeah.
Gold is not replaceable. When people start only buying physical gold and the paper gold that is used to weaken the gold price is gone, we may see a much better run out of gold. I don't think gold has no limit to go higher.
Yeah.
Could be $10,000.
It's interesting you say there's no money for juniors right now. There's somewhat of a different argument coming from Rick Roll, whom I talk to often. He says there's actually more money going into the junior space right now, but because we have that many companies on an individual company basis, the money kind of gets diluted.
Then there's too many companies.
Do you think that's true?
Well, I think there are. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's very hard to say and compare with all those juniors that are out there. How many companies are worth investing in? How many project is valuable? Management, what that type of management there is. There's very few people that can really deliver in terms of producing gold or delivering a good asset all the way to production. Maybe it is right that there's more money coming into the junior market. I just don't see it from my perspective, but I only look at my little world. Maybe Rick has looked at different stats and he has better knowledge. So I cannot really argument on that. But I can say that we don't see it ourselves. And we do have one of the best projects in Canada.
I know you almost have to run here, or you want to stop looking at my face, and I can understand that. What do you have going on for Gold Terra? I mean, last time we gave you an update was, again, not too long ago, about 2 months.
Always a pleasure, first of all, to talk with you.
Thank you.
And then it's always a pleasure to be able to talk about project. Listen, Gold Terra is basically hoping to raise enough money to go back on drilling by the end of December or early January. We have a wonderful pipeline of targets to test. Some for the winter, plus on the Con mine, which we want to continue our work. The surface drilling at Con, as well as the deep drilling. You know, if I had all the money in the world, I'd be spending $10 million next year. But I may only do it 5 or 3. That's the reality. But if I had access to 10 million, I would do 10 million.
When do you want to have a deal by? Like, do you have a deadline where you say, like... Okay.
We publicly announced we were doing a deal, and we will likely close it sometime by the end of November, early December.
Okay, that's kind of your deadline. You don't want to have the financing. That's what I meant.
It's going to be closed before the end of the year.
Okay. Well, Gérald Paneton of Gold Terra Resource Corp, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure, Antonio.
All right, Willem, thank you so much for taking the time here today, this morning, of course, first of all. And I wanted to ask you what you think the sentiment is like right now in the junior mining specifically. I know it's just the beginning of the conference, really, but you were at that dinner yesterday. So how are you finding everything? What do you think the sentiment is?
Yeah, we're at a very particular crossroad, I think, for investors, especially in the junior space. While gold has been making new highs almost every day in the last few weeks, last few months, and many of the juniors are still rock bottom, at rock bottom valuations. And because of that, many of the managers of these smaller companies are still so depressed. They can't believe it's true. And I always have to tell them, no, this is a new bull market. No, this bull market will take years. And yes, it will take time sometimes to catch up as a junior mining company. I think the sell-off, what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, was the last sell-off before the real major rally will start.
Where are you seeing that, or where is that coming from? Is it the gold price action that's telling you? Because, I mean, we've had a couple of interesting weeks in the gold price too, so what are you seeing?
No, to technicals. If you look at the charts, of course, we've seen a breakout for gold, we've seen a breakout for silver, we've seen a breakout earlier for the larger gold names. But if you look at the TSX-V, Toronto Stock Exchange Venture Index, stock symbol CDNX, you see a very long bottoming pattern, actually, which has been taking place for years. But the last few bottoms are trending higher. And there's a lot of resistance just overhead. And once we break that resistance, this space will start to fly, and we're very close to that. But this is a situation, you can't believe it until it happens. And I've been in these markets, I've seen it so many times happening, early 2009, early 2016, after the COVID crash. But during the bad times, during the crash, during the depression period, you can't believe it will happen. But then you'll get the double digits up, the months with the double digit returns.
How long do you think that's going to take? I know that's kind of a crystal ball question, but any good feeling?
Well, if history is any guide, then a new boom market will probably be a much longer and much stronger bull market than the ones we had in 2016 and 2020. Why? 2016 was just a first recovery after a very long downturn. Then the bottom in the market was retested March 2020. And then we had a very short but strong rally. We had 5 months in our fund with double-digit gains back to back. And then the bottom was retested again. And after a triple bottom like this, over such a long period, if you get a breakout, you get a very sustainable, powerful rally, which will lift all boats.
Is that a 1 to 3 year thing? Is it a 3 year to 5 year thing? Or do you think we're going to have to wait longer?
That's very hard to say, but if you focus on the technicals, and my main advisor for that is always A.V. Gilbert of Elliott Wave Trader, and he has this model in which he already predicted in 2015 that we would see the rock bottom the first half of 2016, which happened. And according to his model, this boom market in commodities and gold could take up to 2050. Of course, you'll have sharp corrections, but from a fundamental point of view, this is also, it's not hard to understand such a long boom market, because look at the supply and demand. We'll get shortages in many metals.
When you look at these companies and the way the stocks have performed, really, some of the, well, at least the good gold mining companies that actually pull the metal out of the ground, they've done well, relatively well. The juniors, though, they're still lagging massively. A lot of them are just down 70, 90% and stuff like that. What do you think this next wave is going to do when you say it lifts all boats? Is that the explorers including, or do you think we're going to get a wave of developers and then explorers?
When you see a recovery after a long decline in our markets, you always see gold breaking out first, then you see the majors breaking out, and then in the second phase of the recovery, the juniors take over and they'll run much faster. So we just did a study for our fund, and in the first recovery phase, you always see the majors outperforming the juniors. But we have some strong evidence out of all these recoveries, which I mentioned, 2019, 2016, 2020, that in the second phase, the juniors will show larger gains percentage-wise.
Any particular juniors at this conference that you think might be among those?
I like Aya Silver. Aya Gold and Silver, I think is the official name. They're producing and finding lots of silver in Morocco. They just had a massive sell-off because a major fund exited. So we've been buying that over the last few days.
How many positions do you have? I know you guys been trimming now. How many have you gotten into?
Our top 40 is 80% of our fund now. And then we have like a long tail of, let's say, another 40 companies where we have a small position, like a toe in the water. We're still not sure if that's the tier 1, tier 2 discovery, but it's on our watch list. And then we also have like 15 ETFs, because we also play the stronger trends within the commodity markets. So we don't want to be dependent on just junior mining exploration as it.
Well, what's the criteria that you use? I mean, when you come here and talk to these companies, what are you asking them? What do you want to see from them in order for you to like them?
I want to look them in the eyes. You know, you can make a beautiful PowerPoint and impress me with all these beautiful slides. But if this guy is insecure or he's too promotional and he's telling me bullshit, you sometimes can't feel or see or hear the bullshit. I know this is just a normal Canadian stock promoter. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time, Willem. I know it's time for coffee now. You probably haven't had yours because it's pretty early in the morning, but thank you so much for the time.
I don't drink coffee.
Why not? What's wrong with coffee?
I don't know. I just don't drink it. I always find it strange that the whole world needs coffee in the morning. I need a glass of water and I'll do fine. Yeah?
Well, you're in the junior mining space, keeps your blood rate up.
Yeah, well, if my energy goes down, I just take this small tablet of caffeine in the afternoon. I can go on. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm standing here with Andrew and Andrew, not both Chubb. Chubb, Smith, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's the end of the conference. So how's the conference been for you, gentlemen?
He gets called Smith on site. It's been great. Again, like it's reconnected with people that I've been meeting for the last couple of times I've been here, and new people again too. So the Awalé story is still pretty popular. So people do want to meet up with us and see where we are and where we're going. It's really quite cool.
This is your first conference, though, Andrew Smith. I think or is it second?
For Awalé, first conference, yeah.
So how are you finding kind of the sentiment toward Awalé and the questions that people were asking, stuff like that?
I thought it was quite good. I thought it was good to see it from the investors' perspective. I thought it was good to see Andrew's pitch as well.
Okay, good. What is it that you're pitching when they come here? Because you just had news from Charger, three of the top 10 highest gold reserve. Oh my God, I'm going to try again. Three of the top 10 gold intercepts in Africa this year. That's Charger. BBM, grade is growing at depth. Size is growing. Is that what you're pitching? Or what is it really that you're pitching when you're pitching? Or when Andrew pitches, what is it that you like about his pitch?
I think it's about giving a sense of scale, giving a sense of where we're going and the direction that we're going as a company and how we're trying to get value for the shareholders. I think it can be quite a difficult geology story to follow. So just bringing that down and simplifying it, I think, has worked really quite well. I think the reaction for people today seems to be pretty positive.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, though, generally about the sentiment in the junior mining? Are you seeing it improve? I mean, you were here in March. How's Switzerland feeling now in November?
Yeah, I think pretty positive. It wasn't that. I thought it was good in March as well. So, but whether that's our story but I think people here are quite well educated about the mining sector in general, and the junior mining sector as well. So they don't have issues with, how advanced the play is. If they think it's a decent play, there's comfort in that higher risk investment. But for us, there's also a comfort with Africa in general. People understand the African space better in Europe than perhaps North America.
Oh, good. I do want to ask you some specific questions about Charger and BBM, but maybe we should just sit down, the three of us, do kind of a deep dive, maybe separately on Charger and then on BBM. You do have a new hinge model on Charger, though. Is that easy for people to understand? Because I'm still wrapping my head around that. So maybe you can simplify it for me. Who wants to do it?
Do you want to simplify that one?
Don't fight.
I'm the techie drive, so I think when I try to simplify things, they actually get more complicated.
So, look, it is a new model, and we will be drill testing it at the end of the year. So that the rig should be going at Charger later in December. The fold model without pictures is pretty hard to explain. So, but in a nutshell, what it means is that we've got a model now where we think we can chase find the higher grade parts of the Charger system. So we've defined or hit breccia in our drilling, over a roughly 200 metre strike now, and we've also hit that breccia at depth. And so all the fold model does is it will help us try to define where those higher grade zones are. So Charger for us is not about volume; it's about ounces. And high-grade ounces. So you don't need you don't need volume for those ounces because the grade is there. Yeah. And so if we can put together more fold hinges as well, then it can change exponentially. But at the moment, we don't need to move far to build sort of 250, 500,000 ounces at that 10 to 15 gram kind of range. So that's the key takeaway from this, is that we'll be drill testing that model at the end of the year. We're quite confident with what we've seen in the geology when we compare it back to what we were thinking before. Andrew and I had a fold model actually right back when we started. So we've come a full circle and back to it, and it's been nice to have somebody. It's a good opportunity to talk about John a little bit, because John is a structural geologist. He's a PhD structural geologist. He doesn't like telling people that, but that's what he is. And so he has been fresh eyes, gone back and look at things that were for me, like when we drilled a couple of those holes, the step backs to 83, it was a bit of a head scratcher. They didn't fit in, and he has gone back and carefully pulled the geology apart and put it back together again and come up with the fold hinge model. And it is something that is really exciting for when we go into our next drill program there, because like I said, when we drill test it, if it's holding together, there's ounces.
Okay.
Right.
Figure out the model. The grade is there. If and when you figure out the model, you start building ounces. That's kind of the step-by-step model for Charger, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
I know I'm jumping around, but BBM. You just grade is growing at depth, 3.9 grams, 12 meters, but it's getting a little bit deeper. What's happening at BBM? What is the story of BBM? Are we talking size? Are we talking grade? Both? And what is it that you're doing there right now?
Well, so right now we're talking about building the volume. So it's a different story because there's lower grade, so you need more to actually build ounces, right? So. And the two deeper holes that we drilled, that was specifically to see what the system's doing at depth, and it's still wide open at depth, and so we've proven that down plunge it's keeping on going, and seeing that 12 meter for me, seeing that 12 meters at 3.9 gold equivalent in there. Means that there is still an increment in grade with depth as well. So we're not excluding the potential for underground in the future. But the current drill program is reassuring us of the continuity that we're very confident about in that core 600 metre zone. So we're just putting it in 100 metre pierce points through the zone. So there's going to be a pierce point every 100 metres in that 600 metre zone. And then we're stepping across at a deeper level, stepping across in a panel to the southeast and another panel to the northwest. Okay. So that's that they are holes that will be searching to grow the volume of what BBM is now.
Yeah. Well, I heard you present today. You mentioned that BBM, you have a line of sight to BBM being a mid-tier project. I want a tier one though. What do you have to do for this to be a tier one, or for you to confidently get up on stage and say, you know what, we now know that we have a tier one asset? What's the work that you have to do?
That's the thing. So I think there's line of sight on a mid-tier project, right? So and that's not just BBM. This is an important thing to get across, which. So if you said that today, maybe I didn't quite get across right in my talk, because that mid-tier scale for us means BBM, Charger, and we'll bring Empire back into play as well, right? What's going to give a tier one asset is we need to start in the next year to add in pipeline targets. So pipeline targets are BBM extension, Lando, and potentially Scepter as well. And this has come into the discussion with Newmont as well, because that's the idea, is that we are, we sort of know where we are, but it's not a tier one scale just yet. So we need to do the work next year, like with the budget from Newmont next year, which we expect to grow. So we ended up having 4 million for this year. We did get a small budget extension. That's going to grow. That should be a bigger budget next year, right? And we do that work. We work towards those decision milestones and the size and that scale, right?
Am I way out of line to think Bankan here, as in you have a Bankan on your project, but what you find now are kind of the satellites to a Bankan? Is that way out of line? Is that even possible? What do you think? I see you thinking, Andrew Smith.
I seem to be doing the thinking. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I agree with Andrew. That's the way we look at it. I've always looked at BBM. There's the volume. So we're developing volume there. We can chase the structure. We can add more volume. Normally in these systems, like if you have an ore body, if you have volume, you don't quite have the high grade. These ore bodies don't tend to make it to be economically viable. So for us to have something like Charger in the mix and the volume, we're on our way to potentially making it, as Andrew said, like a mid-tier. The tier one comments, the geological setting is tier one, or has tier one potential on the geologic setting. To say we've got tier 1 deposit now is too early because we just have to establish what we have now. But the geology potential is tier 1. Well, like Andrew says, we're line of sight to a tier 2 and mid-tier at the moment.
So when I say Bankana, that's a deposit. I think it's 4 million ounces. What does that make you? How does that make you feel when I just say the words?
Yeah, I mean, I don't today see line of sight on 4 million ounces at BBM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So if you're talking about one deposit, not.
But the point is, so
But so
I
they've
want
done
him, and
it,
investors
I don't
want
know how
him.
many meters of drilling they've done at Bandcamp.
Yes.
I haven't gone back and looked at that. But what we've drilled 28 holes and just under 7,000 meters at BBM right now. So that would pale into insignificance of what's been drilled at Bandcamp for what they're talking about there now. But so, you know, it's still got significant size potential, BBM, but I've always err on the side of caution, and I don't really think that we should be saying 4 million ounces at BBM today.
Not yet, and that's the whole point, right? Obviously, Bankham's had a whole lot more drilling. How much work does it have to be? A little bit, but there's I mean, grades increasing in depth, and so now I'm pitching you in Awalé, but that's a different point. So, how much more work do you have to do in order to again come back sometime, I don't know, next year or whatever you're coming back and say, okay, now we do have that line of sight on tier 1, because as you say, it checks out the regional scale, the geology checks out. How much more work?
The current thinking is that the drilling that we'll do, if we have that significant, if we have that budget increase from Newmont next year, most of that budget will go into drilling, and so that work should be enough toward the end of next year to make those kinds of comments. Okay. So we're you know, and I'm not going to make a tier 1 comment now because we haven't done that work. So we'll go and do that drilling. I think, you know, you're looking at least 20 to 25,000 meters of drilling with RC and diamond next year, and that drilling will bring us to those kind of milestones and understanding where we are.
Right. To go back to what people are asking you here, are people also asking about the 100% land? Because that's also part of the growth story here, as far as I understand. Do people have questions about that? What are they asking you? What are they telling? What are you telling them?
We're basically telling them how excited we are about to get stuck into the 100% ground. So, you know, I tried to allude to it today a little bit. I mean, we've been restricted to a 400 square kilometre box through, you know, not having granted tenure, and now we've got granted tenure. We're working on and we've got money. So we're working the Cienso permit next door. We hope to have 2 more permits granted as we go to the north before Christmas. We've passed the first stage of that, which is the interministerial committee meeting, and that's the big one where they look at all the data that you provide for them about the company, about your capability, all those sorts of things, and then now it goes through the system for sign-off. So we're really excited to start spending Awale's money on that land, and for us, making discoveries on that ground is the next big catalyst. So the work that we do with Newmont's money now, that's incremental. I would call that incremental growth. But the next big kick will come from making a discovery on the 100% Awale ground. And I've said all along that we have got the best technical team. Like we're so lucky. Well, I'm lucky to have the team that I've got. So, you know, if it's there, we'll find it. And like I said, so the discoveries we've made inside that 400 square kilometre box, that's for me the proof in the pudding, right? So we've proven that there is this district scale potential. There is a huge alteration system there. It's a big mineralising system, and big mineralising systems are not restricted to 400 square kilometre boxes. It's not how it works.
Yeah, right.
So we're really excited to get onto our stuff, and that Fremen target. I mean, that's just low hanging fruit, right? It's a long strike from BBM. It's on another flexure in the same structure. We know that those flexures are important from the mineralization perspective. BBM's on one of those flexures. We'll be drilling that in the first quarter.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. I said we're not going to get bogged down into the details, and then we ended up doing that.
Yeah.
But we still have a lot to talk about. We should sit down, maybe for just a separate conversation on each one of the targets, because there's a lot to talk about. Andrew Smith, I'm going to ask you this question because I asked Andrew Chubb that in Beaver Creek. Was this conference worth your money? And how do you know if it was worth your money? Because I know a CEO is always going to say it was great and all these things, but you as a geologist, maybe a more realistic view, was it worth your money?
I think so. I actually liked the reaction of the people that we spoke to. And I actually think that interaction, for someone like myself, I spend a lot of time in the field. And I'm sort of halfway between the technical team and the corporate. So getting understanding people's view on our project, I thought was really important. But I thought we got a message out today. Yeah. I thought the response was really quite excellent.
Yeah. Rumor has it you spend more time with termites than you do with people in suits.
Oh no, I leave it with the guys now. So yeah, my termite days might be finished, but I still do the senior geologist work. So.
Yeah, good. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We should sit down for a longer conversation, said it 100 times, but thank you so much for your time today.
No worries. Thanks very
Thanks
much to you, Antonio. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Right, I'm standing here with Alain Lambert. Alain, this is actually, I think, it's the first time I'm seeing you on a conference on camera. I did see you in Frankfurt, I think about a year ago or something like that. What are you doing here? What are you hoping to get out of this conference? What's the strategy for coming to these things?
So, it's great to see you in person. I actually saw you at PDAC as well, but you were interviewing Craig Gibson.
True.
That's right. So, I think why we're here is an integral part of running a junior exploration company is to get the story out there. And there are very few conferences that I think are worth attending. And the Swiss Mining Institute is one that's been around for a long, long time. It's worth attending, and we were pretty happy when Manuel Bali gave us a spot when we reached out to him.
Talk to me more about how you decide whether to do these things or not, because I know that since you stepped in and took over from Craig, you've ramped up the marketing a lot, and you do a lot more. How do you know what's good marketing and what's not good marketing for you to visit?
Mainly after the fact. You see, you have to try different things, right? And when I say different things, we know what the things we want to. So we have a robust presence on social media, and that's working very well. And we get statistics every month, and our YouTube channel is growing by leaps and bounds. Our LinkedIn is growing nicely as well, and we also like to meet people in person. So the question is, how do you meet people in person? There are really two ways to do that. One is to do roadshows, which we do, and we did quite a bit of that in Eastern Canada and Western Canada over the last few months. And then we want to attend a few conferences that are well selected, where you're in for 2 days and you get to meet a ton of people in a nice environment and have one-on-ones, and then also present to big groups.
Right. So the first day is now concluded. I think you're through with your meetings. You had an early start, and it's now, almost 5 o'clock or something like that. How was it? How's the sentiment? How are people recepting the story?
Well, people love our story. I would say, generally speaking, you can tell there's 100 companies. So there is a market for conferences, clearly, right? So you've got 150 people showing up. And we're all here for the same purpose, which is to drum up interest. Some people are here because they're about to do a financing. Some people are here just to tell the story, and we're doing a little bit of both.
Okay, to tell the story and get a financing, is part of that also? Is there a strategic element to it? Like, can you find a strategic to meet with and kind of close a deal or get a deal going in order to get them into the story, or is that not something you're looking for?
There's an old friend of mine, actually, that I know. He used to work for me in the early '90s, and then he went on his own. He got into the mining business, and he did all the conferences. And I talked to him one day. He went to, I think it was ADVERTISEMENT or PDAC, and somebody came to his booth, didn't look like nothing, had a good conversation. And over the years, the person invested with him $500 million over a number of years and a number of projects. So you have to put your face out there. You got to meet people, and you never know where the next buyer is going to come from. So you got to do it. And as I was kind of tongue in cheek you know after the fact. But some you go to a conference or you do a roadshow. Sometimes they work great, sometimes not so much. But you do need to remain strategic, and it has to be one of the elements as a public company that you take on a regular basis. I don't think it's worth showing your face once and then never kind of coming back. So we tend to do a lot of the repeat activities with people that we like and we know they're effective and they can open the doors to good investors.
Yeah. Typically a question I follow up with here is, when are we going to see something reflected in the share price? And what is that thing that is actually going to get your share price specifically moving, not only the juniors? With you, really we can move to the $1 million question, which is, when are you going to be drilling?
Right. So you brought up stock price. So we started, as you mentioned, marketing a little bit more over the last few months. And from the summer to October, our share price increased to 28 cents, which was a 52-week high. And then we had the private placement that we did in June at 17 cents become free. And now we're sort of back to that price. And so it's a fine balancing act when you want to raise $3 million like we do for drilling a hard breccia project. So do you do it right before you know that people are going to be dumping your stock, or do you wait? And so, you can force yourself into getting people into a higher price, but then they would be quickly at a disadvantage. So we are now where we want to be, and we've got people that want to help us raise the money. So hopefully we do it before Christmas, and what we've been waiting for, what you've been waiting for, and those who follow us have been waiting for, is put a drill on hot breccia early in the new year, 2025, and get results shortly thereafter.
I know we talked about this a little bit before, at length really, not a little bit, but financing this thing, are you just thinking straight equity, or are you thinking there's other options, creative financing, strategic, JVs, I don't know, what else? Is there something else that you can do outside of just doing straight equity?
At this stage, we want to do equity, and we want to do our first phase of drilling, which is 5,000 meters, and that should give us enough indication of what's there, then hopefully attract a strategic. And then you could say, and you and I have discussed this, is it a joint venture, is it an option agreement, is it an investment in the company? What we have seen a lot happen in the marketplace, and you might have seen, with Hercules and Barrick and others, where the majors come in and they'll invest 25, 40 million in a junior to help them, and then bringing the expertise and to carry on the exploration of the project. Where we are, as you'll remember, Antonio, our neighbor next door is Freeport-McMoRan. We got a Sarco just down the street. We have BHP and Rio Tinto with their Resolution deposit. So all the big guys are in our area, so they would all be logical partners to go to. Obviously, we engage with them on a regular basis, and our preference at this stage would be to take on an investment from them after our first drill program, if we have enough information to entice them, and I think we will.
Right. But essentially, H1 of 2025, we're going to have results from hot breccia. That's what it comes down to.
Correct. That is correct, yes.
Yep. And you're not going to take a no for an answer. There's nothing that can come in between.
No, that's right. And I've talked to some people. Some people say, hey, we're disappointed. We really wanted to drill in the fall. But then, and maybe I'll do this with you. I say, we should do a series of, for retail investors, of what happens in the background and what it entails to go out and not only find the financing, but from the sources that you want and the partners that you're looking for. And these things take time. And so maybe you and I should do this in the first half of 2025. We'll take you sort of behind the scenes and give you some footage that can be released. And I don't want to say the art of the deal. We don't want to be what's the word I'm looking for? We want to be controversial, but I think we're getting very, very close to having the right people that we want to see as shareholders in our company to finance Albrecht.
Good. Well, that sounds like an update, and I think I'm going to let you go here because I know you're looking forward to maybe getting some rest before a long day tomorrow as well. What am I forgetting to ask you, though? What else is important to talk about here?
No, I think we've covered it all. And maybe one thing is Palos Verdes, which is our silver prospect in Mexico. We're drilling right now. We started in several weeks ago. We got 2 holes done. We're going to do the third one, which is comprised of our first phase. And reminding your viewers that we're surrounded by Vizsla. We're drilling off of Vizsla's property. Vizsla is sort of our partner, they're our largest shareholders. And once we have all the assay results coming in, we'll analyze those and release them as a whole.
Okay. When do you think that's going to be?
Could be before Christmas.
Oh.
Yeah, we already have 2 holes done, and we're on the third one, so we should have something before the end of the year.
Awesome. I'll be looking forward to that, and I know we'll be doing follow-up interviews. So, Alain Lambert, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
All right, Luc, I know you're going to love this question because you love answering that, but how's the sentiment been so far? What do you think? Are people happy? Are they ecstatic? Are they depressed? What do you think?
Yeah, I am not really a sentiment guy. When I look at markets, that's where I see the sentiment. I think people judge sentiment by their own portfolio a lot. So if they look at the portfolio and it's down, then sentiment is bad, and the other way around, I think mostly. So if you look at the market, I think you get much of the sentiment. Some people really think or can, say something useful about sentiment at conferences. I always feel like look at the market and you pretty much know what the sentiment is. Yeah.
What about is there a new commodity or something like that everyone's talking about, like a catchphrase? I think Justin Hayek just published something over lunch on Twitter, and he said everyone the new catchphrase is antimony. Is there something else that you've heard?
Well, I didn't hear many people specifically about metals. Antimony is a metal with an enormous price increase recently. I haven't heard many people talk about it, and the ones that talk about it call it still a trace element to look for gold, even though there are a couple of antimony mines and where antimony is useful as a metal in the mine. But you always have themes, right? Right now you see a lot of companies going into Suriname. That's not a metal, of course, but suddenly everybody wants to own a Suriname project because there's a couple of companies or one company like founders successful, and suddenly 3, 4, 5 companies want to be in Suriname because that's the place to be. So this is really a business of hot topics, hot pop places. So if everybody wants gold, everybody jumps into these gold names, while a year ago nobody cared about gold. And same with countries. Now everybody wants Suriname. So I think you have to be careful with that. When everybody wants Suriname, go to another country. No, unless you want to make a trade. But typically the next company, not the first one, but the second one or the third one, those are not always the best ones. Of course, I wouldn't just say no to a conversation with a Suriname company, but I always keep in mind, well, Suriname is hot right now, everybody wants to have a property, maybe it's a bit of a hype. Just an example, maybe Suriname is not a hype, but I don't like these places or metals that suddenly become popular and then decide to buy those things. That's not my style.
Where do you go then now? Is there a specific jurisdiction that everyone hates and the company had no meetings and you're just meeting them or something like that?
Yeah. No. I'm not that averse of, I'm not completely alone in what I'm doing, but I really care about the right company. And it's almost company first and people and insiders and structure. And if all those things are okay or good, then, I look for a project because there's a filtering process. How do you find a project? I think a lot of people find it on social media. They find it through a newsletter writer. And then often you get the popular themes. But I look at, I start filtering down lists from, I don't want a company with 60 million warrants. Well, since that's easy, I can just filter all those companies away and I will miss a couple of good ones for sure. And at some point you end up with 200 companies and then you just look for the project, what are they doing, what are they trying to do, and then I don't really care if it's nickel or gold. I mean, nobody cares about nickel right now, and I don't even think nickel will go up this year or something, but I don't mind buying a nickel property right now or company because it's just nobody cares. And if the company is good and the company has a good philosophy about raising money, how they can survive and not kill the company by doing the wrong deals, then I don't mind investing in nickel names, for example. So I don't really follow metal themes. I don't really follow country themes unless I really like a company. So I'm not against Suriname, like I just said. I'm not against antimony or any other popular metal, but I'm not gonna certainly not look for them because they are popular right now.
The nickel example sounded almost too specific. Is there a name that you want to share with me?
No.
Not yet?
No, I'm buying a nickel junior, but
Okay.
but this is a typical junior I don't even want to mention anyhow because it's a risky, small micro cap.
A Luke special.
It looks special,
That's it.
and not for the competition. I think there's enough shares available. Normally, I buy these very illiquid things. This thing is liquid enough to buy stock, but it's not something I think to say on camera. It's so early, and there's not a real. I mean, the story is. There's not even. Well, there's a story, but it's a typical thing that most people really think like, why would you buy that right now? And I think let's leave it like that until the point comes when people want to own it, so that I can dispose some of my shares to your listeners. No, I'm joking, but I think it's early, and you have to have a lot of patience. It's a boring company right now, and I think it can change in 6 months, and then suddenly people will like it, and that's the point when I may take a little bit off the table already, because I think this is the first time I can make a profit, take some off the table, and leave the rest if I like it.
Yeah. I think a few people did take it seriously and just turned off the video, by the way. I hope that's not true. What you're saying is that soon enough we're going to see a list about a nickel company with a couple of things that we're going to go through.
I have a list. Some lists are confidential and some lists are available.
Who are you talking to here, though? I don't suppose the company is here, maybe here, but you don't have to tell me about that. But who are you talking to here specifically? And when you go to them, what are you guys talking about? What are you asking? What do you want of them? Because you have access to these management teams nonetheless. You know the stories inside and out. Yet you make the trip from the Netherlands here to Switzerland. Why? What are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Well, the first company was Lavras. I think we discussed it a couple of times at the show as well. I think a lot of people who are interested in gold discoveries know the story, so I don't want to explain it from beginning to end. But it just checks a lot of boxes. But its stock went up 5, 6, 7x, so maybe not interesting to people anymore. But just everything: share structure, management team, insider buying, good project, discovery, more discovery potential. Big companies interested in the story. It's really almost ideal. But you never know, of course, if the project's going to work. There's always risk. I'm not saying this is a company without risk. I just think it's a company that checks almost any box you can check in this business. So that's one. I have a couple of companies I didn't know. One I was very skeptical about and surprised me in a way. I'm not going to name them because it's a very risky company as well. And people can just go through the list of companies here and judge which ones they like. But I just meet about 20 companies at this conference. Probably 10 of them I don't really know well. 10 of them I know well and I wanted an update from them. Like Sunpeak I mentioned many times. I'm not going to tell the story here right now, but Sunpeak is one I'm just waiting for an update, see what they're doing. I owned it for a number of years and like Lavras I want an update.
Good, good. Well, I'm looking forward to an update on one of your lists in a couple of days, but thank you so much for your time just now.
Well, thank you, and see you again soon.
All right, I'm standing here with Rua Gold. Rob, how are you finding the sentiment at the conference so far? Are people bullish? What are they asking? Are they complaining? What are they telling you?
There's a lot of macro chat. I mean, we've just come out of the US elections, so most of the talk has been where's gold going? There's been a pullback. But, I mean, you still look back to our last conference here in March. I find this is one of the best run conferences in Europe. It definitely gets top quality investors and you have really sensible discussions about what's happening. And we have to remind ourselves, gold's gone up 30-40% in the last 12 months and a pullback is completely natural. So I think everyone's still very supportive. Everyone expected some sort of pullback. Maybe it's a bit bigger than some were thinking, but I think if you're not making money at a $2,500 gold price, you probably shouldn't be in business.
Well, you brought up the crystal ball, so I'm going to make you pull out yours. Where's gold going? What do you think?
I think I've sort of been talking about it for a little while. I think gold should be seen as a steady investment. No one's looking to make Bitcoin returns off gold. No one's looking for quick wins. You're looking
Speak for yourself.
Well, I'd say crystal ball, I think it just steadily rises. We'll see it ripsaw up and down a little bit, but I think overall general trend will continue to rise. I think we're in a difficult state economically, politically, and I think that's not going anywhere fast.
And you specifically are not here pitching gold, of course. You're here pitching Rua. what else are you doing? Let's put it that way. Why are you here in the first place? What are you hoping to get out of this conference? What's kind of the goal for you?
We've got some of our biggest shareholders here in Europe and at this conference, and so it's a great opportunity to check in with them and really give them an update on what's happening besides my interviews and the availability of news online. It's always nice to sit with an investor and just have a discussion. And there's new investors here. There's always family offices that are looking to get exposure. We've got a really good asset in a really good jurisdiction, and I think that's rare these days. And so we want to get the story out there. We're still relatively new. We only listed this in March, and so the more we can get the Rua Gold story out, the better it is.
What kind of shareholders do you want to attract, or how do you think about building your shareholder registry? Do you want to keep it more institutional, more retail, to have more liquidity, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's actually something I put way more thought than I ever thought I would into. Becoming a CEO, I've previously been CFO type roles in building companies, and so putting the CEO hat on, I've just spent the whole year learning about marketing, about our shareholder base, about what the right mix is. I lean on a lot of peers and a lot of people that are ahead of me in our career. One important thing that Chris Taylor always told me from the start when I used him as a peer, he had great success out of Great Bear. He said, never let the retail investors go. They're sticky, they stay in the story for a long time. Institutions can be dangerous if you get the wrong institutions in, and so we try and keep a good balance. We raised $8 million in July at a 18-cent price, no warrant included, and that's only possible through institutions. They're really supportive of our deal. They see it where it's going, and so you need that institutional support. But at the same time, then I spend a lot of my year then building out the retail profile, doing a lot of LinkedIn, doing a lot of media and marketing to try and get the retail buyers in as well. And so I think it's a strong mix. Almost a 50-50 is important.
What is the story that you're pitching in that case to retail? What do you see them caring the most about? Are you pitching it jurisdictionally because you have somewhat of a unique jurisdiction? I mean, it's not BC or anything like that. So is it that? Is it high-grade gold? What are you pitching?
It is the jurisdiction and the high grade. And I think the third piece is the management team. I think if any retail is going into any sort of junior explorer, you're in the high speculative end of the investment sort of realm. It's a high-risk investment, and there's ways to de-risk it. One is picking a management team that have done it before. And so we talk a lot about the management team, prior successes. We're not just a quick drill a few holes and sell it to a major type team. We've built companies, we've built mines, and we've exited at huge value creation for shareholders. The jurisdiction is important. I follow a lot on what happens in the world right now, and it's sad to see things like Mali arresting CEOs, and it's not good for the industry, it's not good for investors. And being in New Zealand, you've got very much a good jurisdiction, and it's an education piece because New Zealand hasn't always been great. It's previously been difficult to get permitting done there, and that's done a full 360 or full 180, I should say. That's now changed, and they're really pushing for more mining there, and they want more investment, and they're making all the right moves to help promote that. So there's a lot of education on New Zealand, and then finally high grade, as I said. If you're not making money at 2,500, then you shouldn't be in business. And I think there's too many low grade bulk tonnage type operations that are marginal. Rua Gold will never be that. We're going to be underground. We're going to be always, right now we're intercepting 1 ounce a ton when we look at things. So 34 gram a ton was our last intercept, and we'll keep pushing for that high grade intercepts, and that's how you create a really economic gold mine.
To your point of New Zealand, I almost feel like it's done a 540. So it did a 360 and then a 180 after that.
Yeah.
We just recently, you've seen it on Twitter and LinkedIn. I mean, with what happened in the parliament, is that going to affect you in any way? Do you think you might have any issues with the local population or something along those lines?
No, I think that's a separate issue altogether. I think we shouldn't blur it with what's happening in mining. We do a lot of consultation with all the different Maori groups in our areas of impact, and they're very supportive. I mean, they want jobs, they want growth, they want future for their families, and we're not looking to take that away. If anything, we want to put more investment in and build more schools. Like, we know, you and I know, we look at all these mining companies around the world, And one of my most frustrating things is the silo that we work in. Like, we all do amazing things. You put $1 million into a exploration project, the on-flow effects is another $1 million out in the community. You create rural communities through mining.
Yeah.
And so the Maoris are very supportive of it. We do a lot of consultation with them. And so, yeah, I don't see that as an issue at all.
You're also working on a deal right now, which I suppose is exciting. Not easy, maybe not as easy as you thought. How's that going?
Good. I mean, it's both a pro and a con. When we just for background of listeners, we are actually buying our neighbour. They've got an asset in Reefton in the South Island of New Zealand. It neighbours us. We have 35,000 hectares. They have another 85,000 hectares. And so we're taking over that whole district. And we see that Reefton district as huge potential. It's very untapped, and that's why we're buying it. But probably for the first time in New Zealand's recent history, there was a big battle over land there, because we put this offer in July. We announced the deal with Siren Gold to acquire their Reefton tenements. And on the day of the shareholder vote, we had an interloping offer come in from another New Zealand company that wanted to kibosh the deal, essentially. And luckily, I was down in Australia. I was talking to their shareholders, and we convinced them that the deal with Rua was better. It created more value potential. And so we got that shareholder vote over the line. But for the first time in a long time, I think people are actually waking up to the New Zealand's potential, and there's almost a battle for land there.
Yeah. Can you give a timeline on that? Is that very, very imminent that you think the deal is going to close, or how long is it going to take before it actually closes?
I think depending on your production capabilities and how quick you turn around this interview, I think it should be closed by the time. We've got all the shareholder votes, all the New Zealand consents are in. The final step is TSX-V approval. We have to prepare 43-101s on this property, and they're reviewing those as we speak. And so that's the last step, and this week it should be done.
85,035, you're going to make me do math that's up my head. 120, what is that, 1,200 square kilometers?
Correct, yep.
A lot of land for junior mining. Are you going to be looking for a strategic to help you explore that, or do you want to keep that to yourself?
We definitely want to keep it to ourselves, and it is a big land package, but really what we're focused on, and we've actually onboarded Verify AI to help us identify targets to make sure we're not spending it in granites that are down the very bottom of our tenement package. We're really looking for the most prospective areas. And so we're using our 5 years of data that we've collected, because this company, despite listing in March, has been around and active since 2019 privately. So we've got a huge amount of data. The Siren team have a huge amount of data. We've put that all into the Verify AI model, and we're going through an iterative process to come out with the most prospective targets, and that's where we'll drill first. We're not looking for any sort of investment from majors. We've got a good treasury. It'll see us through to June next year with a very aggressive 3 drills turning program, and we're excited to what we can bring to the market.
How many meters do you think you're going to be able to drill?
I think we're, roughly speaking, around 6,000 meters between now and then.
Okay. What's going to be the cadence of news releases then for those 6,000 meters? I suppose you're going to be batching them, well, depending on the results, but you're going to be batching them, and how are they going to be coming out over the next couple of months?
Correct, yeah. We'll batch them. Previously, the last 2, we've sort of just put out news releases as holes already, but we've gotten to a stage now where we're batching 3 or 4 holes at a time, and the next release will be out at the end of this month or first week of December, and then in a sort of every month after that, we'll put out news results on that drilling.
Okay, and that's going to be, so you have the deal closing now. I think we're going to be able to have this out pretty quickly, actually, hopefully this week. So maybe it's going to be interesting to see that. So you have the deal closing, you have Verify coming out with new targets for you, and then you're going to be drilling these targets. What else in the meantime? Anything additionally happening? Again, talking strategically, or something else? You're going to be picking up more land or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so the interloping offer came from a group called Federation Mining. We've actually enveloped them now with our land package, and they're a really leading class example of what you can do in New Zealand. They've already got a fully permitted mine through to construction, through to first gold. They've raised over $150 million for their project, and it's on 7 square kilometers. So you think it's maybe a 1/20th of our size of land package. And they've been able to fund that all the way through to construction. it just speaks to the volumes of what that area potential is. And so there's a deal to be done with them. It needs to, I think it's too soon after the last deal with Siren, but it does make sense that if you've got a fully permitted mine and it's going into operation, we've got a whole bunch of gold right next to them. There could be a potential there, but there's no discussions ongoing there. Right now the focus is on drilling and proving up the land that we've got.
Is it that drilling that you think is kind of going to get you to the next stage? Because as you mentioned, I think you had just listed last time I saw you here at this conference, which was March earlier this year. And it's been a bumpy ride since. You've gone up and down. You're I won't call it flat, maybe a little bit down or a little bit up by the time this goes out. But what's going to take you to the next level? Is it drilling and those results? That's what you think is going to take the stock price to the next level?
Correct. Yeah, I think we've done what we wanted to do corporately in terms of we've matured our listings. We've got from CSE to TSX-V. We're onto the OTC QB. We've done a shelf prospectus. So all the corporate things are in hand. The foundations are there. We've then done this deal with Siren, and that gives us a scalable project. We had a good piece of land package before. We had historic mines on our area. We had high-grade results. But now we've got something that creates scale that will be attractive to a major one day. And so that was really important. Now we've done all that. Now it's drilling, and that's really what we should be focusing on.
Good. And then last time we spoke, I also asked you, you just mentioned you went to the TSX-V. I asked you if you're thinking ASX. I mean, the accent would fit for sure. So are you still thinking it?
Definitely, yeah. I think, and I was being down in Perth for the Siren shareholder vote, having a strong shareholder base now, because Siren shareholders will own 26% of Rua. There's a lot of interest in Australia for New Zealand. Australia, unfortunately, is also going the wrong way. There's a lot of tax hikes there. There's a lot of permitting issues out of Australia, and so it is getting more difficult there as New Zealand gets easier. And so the Australians are looking across the pond. Santana Minerals has done an amazing job. Their ASX company, they've proven up 2 million ounces in New Zealand, and they're trading at $500 million market cap.
Yeah.
So there's definitely an appetite there. But I also am cognizant of keeping our overheads low, and I think while we're a $50 million company, we shouldn't be increasing overheads by dual listing. I think it makes sense once we're about 3 times the size, once we're about the 150 to 200 million market cap. I've done a lot of research into it, and that's when you start getting indexes. That's where you start getting pension funds buying you and institution support and things like that. So it's definitely in our future, but not the right now.
It's funny when you mentioned over the pond, I'm thinking about a completely another pond that's... Anyways, what do you think about the Canadian markets now that you've been newly listed? A lot of people say they're broken, and then they're like, oh, the ASX is always doing so much better. Are the Canadian markets broken? Is it necessary for you to go to the ASX to get the full value for Rua?
Well, I think we have to remember we also bought an ASX junior miner recently, and I think generally the junior space is very difficult. I think there's a lot of projects out there, a lot of saturation, and a lot of bad projects. And so it's easy to say, oh, the market's broken. It's not the assets that's broken. It's not the management team that's broken. I think regardless of ASX, TSX, doesn't matter. I think in the junior end of the space, it's a difficult place to be. I think once you hit production, I definitely think the ASX is much better. I think they value cash flow a lot better than the TSX values cash flow. And so I think ASX still has one up on TSX at that certain size. I think it's pretty indifferent between where we are sitting today as Rua.
I really like that point that you made, that it's always someone else's fault, not your fault. That seems to be a big thing in juniors. Rob, I think I'm through with my questions. What am I forgetting to ask you? What do you think it's important to talk about that I'm not bringing up?
Well, the one thing we haven't mentioned is we do have a second project called Glamorgan on New Zealand's North Island. It's earlier exploration, but we do have a team of 12 fieldies walking around there at the moment, collecting soil samples, doing the mapping, doing that early exploration work. That's very important. So it's not the sexy work that gets share price moving, but it's very important to build the foundations. That's going to be a 2025 drill story. We're in permitting phase right now there. And we're excited about what that has. I mean, it's bordering an asset called Wharekirauponga, or WKP. It's an Oceana Gold asset. It's in the fast track process, which means it's getting a 6-month evaluation for permitting. So it could be fully permitted to build by July next year, and it's Oceana Gold's biggest pipeline project. So we're adjacent to it. We're going to somewhat ride their coattails on all their success. They're going to have a PFS out on that in 2 weeks, and it's really speaks volumes to that district as well. I mean, I think New Zealand has so much potential, both North and South Island, and so that's one to watch as well.
Yeah. You're not going to try to buy Oceanic, are you?
Not yet. We'll give it another year. Let's talk next SMI.
That's Rob Eckford of Rua Gold. Sir, thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Antonio.
I'm standing here with Trey Wasser, or Vasa, I don't know how I'm supposed to say it anymore, but of Dryden Gold. How should I say it?
Well, since we're in Switzerland, it's Wasser.
There you go. Sir, what are you doing here? What are you hoping to get out of this conference, and are you getting your money's worth?
Well, yes, this is a great conference. The Bally's do an excellent job. Previous company that I was a CEO of, I came to this conference maybe 3-4 times, and always successful. So I know a lot of people over here already. So for me, it's, even though we're a new company, it's a lot of known faces and a lot of happy shareholders from Ely Gold royalties that we sold in 2021.
Right. You are a new company, and that means you're still kind of building out your share registry. How do you want to do that? What's the idea behind it? Are you targeting kind of a 50-50 retail and institutions, or what's the idea behind building out the share registry here?
Well, as you know, it's been a tough market, so you don't really get so much to choose your share registry. But we spent about 2 years as a private company putting our land package together. It's a significant land package in Northwest Ontario, and so we raised some money privately to option and purchase those properties. And so we've been very successful, and then we did the RFTO and raised $5 million in January, and we just completed another round of financing for $5 million. And we've been able to attract some of the most well-known investors and smartest names in gold mining, including Eric Sprott, Rob McEwen, Adrian Day, the Europac Gold Fund, most recently Rob Cohen from 1832, and Robert Quartermain. I mean, we have pretty much the stalwart. So, we're building out the share registry with very well names and a lot of institutions coming in that are longer term holders. Yeah. But at the same time, at conferences like this, and I also spent quite a bit of time this last summer marketing in Quebec to high net worth individuals. So we want to round it out with high net worth and retail investors as well as the institutions.
How are you finding the sentiment between here in Europe and over in Quebec? What's the sentiment toward juniors? Say the market has been tough, but what's the sentiment when people come and talk to you specifically?
Well, look, I think one, like I said, I have some history here because I've already been approached by several shareholders from the previous company that were successful, happy, and what are you doing now? Tell me your new story. So here, and before this I was in London, I find it still maybe a little shy, if you will, with investing in, especially in new names, that most of the emphasis in the market as gold prices have really skyrocketed in the last few years has been on the producing companies. So, consequently, the juniors, you have to have a good story. You have to be able to raise money, and unfortunately, at these valuations, that can be dilutive. So you have to be very careful about how you spend that money. Yep. And those are all the things we're doing. We have an excellent team that really watches every penny, and so we get a lot of exploration dollars into the ground. Yeah.
Well, maybe investors are shy because you didn't bring Maura with you. Maybe that would have been easier.
Well, everybody loves Maura. That's what I say. Yeah, she's actually in New Orleans at the conference down there.
Divide and Conquer.
Brian, exactly. Yeah, and so it's always is good to bring her. In this business, you have to get lucky, and probably the luckiest thing that's happened to this company as I've developed it, as I said, over the last few years, was Maura becoming available back we hired her right after PDAC last year, and her experience at Red Lake, and then with Treasury Metals in this camp is just invaluable, and she brought along with her number 2 from Red Lake. Not everybody knows this, but Maura ran the entire exploration program at the Red Lake mine for 5 years for Goldcorp. So she knows these rocks, and The reason she wanted to get involved is because she saw how similar the rocks were here on the property that we have in Dryden to Red Lake.
Well, best thing that happened to you is more becoming available. I can say the same thing for my wife. It actually the best thing that happened to me. I'll use that later. She's going to be happy. What is really the story then that you're pitching to investors when they come here to you? They've made an appointment. What is it really that you're pitching? Are you pitching new story, high grade, billionaire investors? What's kind of the whole?
Well, obviously that's all part of it. But the big story is we really think we have the next Red Lake camp. And we have the technical team that really is backing that up. Maura came in and Anna with some ideas, because Maura had worked in this camp with Treasury Metals, so she knew these rocks. And the more work we do, we've now shown in just the short time that we've been drilling and assaying and logging and everything else that the geologists do, is that we have the same geometry as Red Lake to the geology. We have the same rock types. We have the same dikes, felsic and ultramafic dikes that are controlling the high-grade mineralization. And most importantly, we have the same three types of mineralization, both the quartz veins, the volcanics that are sheared basalts that carry gold, and also the disseminated sulfide ore, which is the most important in these systems that really goes to depth. So the previous operator, who made a fantastic discovery on this property, but then never really followed up with the science, and they never assayed the sheared volcanics, for example. They never really explored where the sulfide ore was, where they could really get some deeper holes, and that's what we've been doing.
And you've recently come out with some grades. I'm gonna be rounding off, but 9 grams over 12 meters, give or take. That intercept was interesting to me because there was a very high grade over somewhat of a 2-meter intercept, if I'm not mistaken. What's simplified for me? Just talk to me like I'm 5, because I'm not much older than that. Where's that intercept coming from? Is it giving you any potential worries for it being nuggeted or something along those lines?
Well, look, this is free gold. There's a lot of free gold in this. We see a lot of visible gold, so it is nuggety, and that's it can be more difficult in the assaying and everything. But that actually, what excites us the most about that hole is that it wasn't as smeared. The hole next to it, which was, I believe, again, almost 31 grams over 5.7 meters. That had a core of 313. So it was much more smeared to that high grade. This one actually, while it has that section of 1 ounce over 2.7, it has some nice 8, 9, 5, 6 intervals in there as well. So it's not as smeared as it seems. And the other thing is that on the previous hole, there's 2 types of assays you do on these in this nuggety sulfide ore, high grade. One is, of course, is the fire assay. And when we fire assayed the first hole, it was lower. It was like 22 grams over 5.7. And in the core, it was 200 in the vein. When we did the more expensive test that works better with the free nuggety gold, it's called screen metallics, that jumped up by 50%. So it went from 22 to 32, or 31, and the core went from 200 to 313. Now this hole that we just announced is only the fire assay, and we've done that on purpose so that you'll see a press release coming out from us in the next couple of weeks where that hole will go up. If it goes up as much as the other one, it'll maybe look more like 12 to 14 grams over 12 meters. And that core that is 2.7, 32 now, might be 42, 45, something like that. Because they're going up a bit. It's going up by, the 2 tests we've done, it's gone up by about 50%.
That is a lot, so it'd be interesting to see what comes out of there in the next couple of weeks. You say you do also have 5 other holes that you still have to report. When are we going to see those?
Yeah, those we're still working on trying to figure out. Those were back on the big master system. We're focused right now on the Elora. And the big master system, those holes are, again, we're rerunning them with the screen metallics. And we're seeing, we just haven't quite figured out that area yet. So we're going back in and doing a couple more holes to retest something that doesn't look right in those holes. So they're still coming, but probably over the next few weeks.
Okay, so but weeks. I mean, you're thinking before the end of the year.
Yeah, and we have the drill rigs turning again. We're drilling. We're back on Elora, where those 2 high-grade holes were, drilling 3 more holes deeper. And so those also probably be coming out, hopefully before the first of the year. But with Christmas, it might be shortly after. But we just did a second financing. We were able to raise $5 million on the RTO in January, and another $5 million that we closed in October. So we're fully funded for our exploration, and the drill rigs will keep turning at this point. One of the beauties of this is, unlike Red Lake, we're on very high ground. We have great access, and we can drill year round, and we can drive a pickup truck right to the drill rig. So very easy drilling.
What kind of pickup trucks are we talking about?
Maura's got a brand new Ford.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good. Well, you say you're financed to do this drill program. Do you need money right after the assets have been reported, or how far does it take you?
Well, our next goal is to bring on a strategic partner. Because we're not making any bones about what our exit strategy is for shareholders here. The board is all made up of people like Darren Wagner, Christina McCarthy, Jason Jessup, our CFO, Scott Kelly, myself, all a history of building shareholder value and exiting with an M&A transaction to realize that value at the right time. Obviously, we want to make that value as high as we can over the next 2 to 3 years. But that's the timeline on this. And so our next goal is to bring on a strategic partner who would make say a 10% or a 9.9% investment, not take over and want a board seat or anything like that, but just validate the project and move it forward that way. If we do that, then with the money we just raised, we'll be fully funded for next year to drill all year, about a $6 million exploration program.
Right.
And then next December, from our RTO, we have 38 million warrants at 30 cents. So, that potentially is an $11 million financing sometime later this year, if we can get the stock, have the results to get the stock up above that 30 cent threshold.
I want to go back to that potential for strategic there for a second, because those are already narrow criteria. You're talking about a 10%, not a 20% ownership. You're talking free gold, high-grade gold, Red Lake District, and so on and so forth. Who do you think theoretically, and this is speculating forward-looking statements, but who does this fit with? Like, who do you imagine as a strategic?
Well, this fits for everybody. The majors are all looking. Some have been to site. The mid-tiers are all looking. And one of the things, we talked earlier about the difficulty market here for junior explorers, but all of the major and mid-tiers are all making these type of strategic investments. So I think Kinross has made 3 or 4 this year. Barrick has made a few. Centerra's, I know. Pretty much everybody, that's how they're funding the early exploration, because those major companies and mid-tiers, they let go of a lot of their early stage exploration teams a long time ago, back when things were tough, even before COVID, but certainly through COVID, So that's really kind of what's sparking, I think, the junior space now. So, people ask me, they say, well, there's so many junior companies, how do you differentiate, I say, well, first you look and see who can raise money, because if you can't raise money, you're not going to move a project forward, and most companies can't raise money in this market. And then who have you raised it from? Who's investing in the project, and has your project warrant a strategic investment, because those investments are out there. So if you really have a good project, you should be able to attract that kind of strategic investment.
Yeah. Everyone started moving, so I think it might be lunchtime. And I know you're looking out to that lunch after pitching so much this morning. What am I forgetting to ask you, though, Trey? What else is important that we're not covering?
I don't think anything really. I mean, we have a great property. It's a very large land package. If this turns out to be the next Red Lake camp, we own the whole camp, not just a project there. We have 70,000 hectares. And we have the right team. We have the right property. We have a stated exit strategy for shareholders. So, and we have the whole team that has, and we're already starting to show the kind of results that it's going to take to build shareholder value here.
And that's Trey Wasser of Dryden Gold. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks.
All right, Peter Krauth, thank you so much for your time today, sir. How are you finding the sentiment so far? I know it's kind of early, so you maybe haven't spoken to everybody yet, but how's the sentiment here?
Well, I guess overall I'd say it's a little bit mixed. The companies are never happy enough with how sentiment is. I mean, it has to get, I think, pretty crazy before they really get happy. But I think it's that the investors are a little bit mixed. The investors are a little bit quirky. They like to see things move, but they're not patient. And I like to say that patience is the rarest of all the commodities. And so, we're at a much better place than we were maybe the last conference, which is back in March. If I remember right, silver had just started to move in February. It was $22. Gold was around 2,000 or so. Silver is about 35-40% higher. Gold's about 30% higher. It's really hard to complain, but we always find a way. I think overall, the mood has changed. Definitely, the metals have moved, and the larger caps have also started to move. So you see some activity.
When it comes down to sentiment, it doesn't seem like it's the absolute price of the metal that moves sentiment, but it's rather the momentum. Are we losing momentum in the gold and silver prices? I mean, what happened in the last 2 weeks has been interesting, to say the least. What do you make of it?
I think that we'll be surprised. People who are who are a little bit jaded and expecting more of a correction, I don't think that will necessarily come. I think we may have seen the worst of it already. And of course, I can't know for sure. But my sense is either we've seen the worst already and we've bottomed, or the bottom is a little bit lower. That we could be in for a second small correction, I believe. It's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to get much worse. And if we do see a lower low, I would certainly see that as an opportunity. I don't think that will take long or last long either.
When you look at the relationship of the junior mining space to the metals prices, though, over the last couple of years, the metals have kind of grinded higher very well. The juniors, pretty much the exact opposite. And so we always seem to have a correlation to the downside. So when the metal goes up, juniors do nothing. When metals go down, juniors also go down. What's it going to take to change that, to break that correlation, or just recreate the positive correlation?
I think that some new, well, for sure, in silver, it could take some new all-time highs. That is a ways off, I think. But even to, let's say, break through $40, for example, I think that would be, the round numbers are the psychological markers, and I think that will do a lot. I think that it could actually come sometime next year, for example. And in gold, I mean, we were, a few weeks back, we were almost at 2,800. So the next big psychological round number is 3,000, and I think we're going to probably see that in the first half of next year. And so I think if we see that again will sort of light a fire under buyers. And I think, we do hear pretty often that there's a bit of an argument that investors have alternatives they didn't have before. They have the physical ETFs as ways to invest in silver and in gold, and it probably does draw a fair bit of money if you look at the amounts that these ETFs hold in terms of overall assets. It's quite large, and it's easy to flow money in and out. So people, I think many people who are kind of new to the space will go to that first, whereas in the past they would have had to either buy physical or go to the equities. So that kind of layers in between. But I think again these new highs, psychological targets, these round numbers like 40 for silver, 3,000 for gold, I think that really will get things moving.
Well, what's making you think that we're going to hit it that close by now? I mean, $3,000 gold, that's rather specific first quarter of next year. Where's that belief coming from?
Well, to be fair, I think maybe first half even.
Sure.
First half of next year. What will it take for that? My first target for the second half of this year was 35 in silver. We got there. I didn't have a specific target for gold, but now that we've touched 28, we're still around 26. I don't see that, first of all, as very far off. It's not a huge jump from these levels, and I still think that there's considerable recession risk at this point. When the Fed starts cutting, the average of the last 2 recessions was, I think, 3 to 4 months after they started to cut. So the first cut came in September of this year. I think that for me, it doesn't mean history will repeat, but that was actually a bit of an average. So that would bring us to sort of late this year, maybe even first quarter next year in terms of a recession hitting. And I think we see that. We see a renewed demand for safe haven, and I think that can drive gold again.
When that happens and you say that psychological threshold is passed, what do you think that's going to do to the juniors? And then more specifically, really what I'm thinking about is what subset of the junior market you think is going to do well? Are we talking developers, explorers? Who's going to be first?
Well, I would say developers will come first. We saw a considerable move this year, say between February and a few weeks ago, and in across the board, across the spectrum, but really most of it came in the larger names, being the producers and the large royalty companies. It's natural; they move first. When people become interested in a space, the smart money, the big institutional money is first, and it looks for liquidity. It looks for listings on larger exchanges, and so that's where they find the liquidity, and they have their mandates. They're only allowed sometimes to invest in market caps of a certain size. So we've seen that move, I think, already in the larger caps, and so I think the next phase will probably start to see the smaller producers and the developers come after that. The M&A certainly has been exciting. I've been saying for over a year we're going to see some M&A in this space. It's more than due. Already the sector is quite small. I'm focusing on silver, and we've seen 2 big deals already. That makes it harder for investors. I'm hearing complaints about that. People who run funds have a difficulty finding companies they can invest in, and they've just lost 2 because of combinations in the last couple of months. So it's an interesting space to watch for sure, but I think that the developers and the small producers will be next.
Any particular silver companies that you like at this conference?
Yeah, I think one that I've said for a while, and it's remained I think very much a bargain, is Suma Silver. They have 2 what I consider to be flagship projects. One is in Tonopah. They are what I would call sort of the eastern half of BlackRock Silver's Tonopah West project. So there's that called the Hughes project. And then in New Mexico, they have the Mogollon project. Both are high grade. There's no resource so far by the company on either project. And I think that's probably one of the things that's weighing on it a little bit. People are just saying, show me, I want to see what you really have. But I mean, I can see how this is playing out. They've been drilling both projects. Fantastic results, high grades over considerable widths, and big step outs. So, I mean, these things can get really quite big. I'm talking specifically about the Nevada project. So I think there's a lot in store. I believe it's a bit of a diamond in the rough. It's going to be polished over the next few quarters, and it's certainly one to watch.
When you go here and talk to these companies, Peter, what are you asking them when you go and talk to Sumo or another company that you maybe hadn't heard about before? What's kind of the first thing you were asking them?
Well, I mean, I get an update. I do speak to them regularly, but the fact that I'm here and I have the chance to catch up, I get sort of the latest details from them, and always wanting to know what to look for, what maybe some of the catalysts coming that can get things moving. And when you're in person, you can always get a little bit more insight in terms of how someone is handling a certain project, the view they have for it. A company, let's say, for example, that has just published a PEA, will be doing different things to advance their project, and you may want to they may have different options. They might say, well, we're either looking to eventually develop it ourselves, or we may be looking to, at all options, we may be looking to JV, to develop it, to sell it. So everything's on the table, and I think you get a better sense when you're in person, and you get the chance to discuss with companies that way.
Peter Krauth, the Great Silver Bull, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Antonio. My pleasure.
So I'm standing here with Francis McDonough of Lift Power. Sir, what are you finding in the conference, specifically because you're a lithium company? I don't imagine it's very easy to pitch lithium now, but how's the sentiment towards lithium juniors in particular?
Well, I think, like you said, the lithium market's been challenged in the last little while with low prices, and I think a Rick ruleism is low prices are lead to the next bull market, right? So it's not necessarily the greatest time for equities, but it's also an opportunity to go out and pick up prospective assets and companies for investors. So people that understand commodity cycles, it's an easy pitch to them because you buy when the price is low, and there will be another run in lithium prices, and you just wait it out. So it's been great so far. The story has been, I think, well received by investors.
How many meetings did you have today?
I didn't have any breaks from 8:30, so.
Oh, wow. It's just for context for people listening, it's what, 4:30 now almost. So you've done quite a lot. So what have you done? So 15, 16 meetings, something like that?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Part of how many of those meetings would you say were well receptive or had where you felt like, good sentiment toward me?
I would say maybe one or two were kind of a little blasé.
Okay.
But other than that, very, very good meetings.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So what is exactly the story that you're pitching to most people? Is it the story of lithium alone, or is it the story of, Lift Power is going to get to that sacred 100 million tons? Or is it, what exactly are you telling them?
Well, I always start out with the macro because I think that's important, especially investing in any commodities. You want to try and get the macro right and get in at the right time. And that's, like I was saying, it's an easy story to pitch right now. You just put the lithium price chart up and you see we've just come, we're in a bottom right now. And so that's the start. And then obviously pitching that Lift is one of the premier names to go to in the lithium equity space. So I think our resource estimate that came out about 6 weeks ago, that's backstopping our valuation. So we came out with 50.4 million tons at 1% lithium. And that's the initial resource estimate. This is the third largest initial resource estimate for any spodumene projects in Canada. And we didn't stop drilling because we were out of resource. We stopped drilling because the lithium market was crashing around us and we weren't getting paid to drill. So that's the start, and there's a lot of upside to add when we get back out and drill.
Realistically, how much upside is there? You say this is your initial MRE. What do we? I just kind of jokingly said 100 million pounds, but that is actually kind of the number that everyone's looking out for.
Yeah.
Is that still in the cards? And again, this is forward-looking statements, so we're speculating maybe at this point. But do you think Lift has that to offer?
Yep, I think us and some other smaller deposits around us, I think we will get to 100 million tons eventually. And again, that is forward-looking, of course.
Yes.
But you can see the potential. And one of the selling points of this project is it's very easy to understand because you can literally see the deposits from space in satellite imagery. And so, we know where these deposits are. They're sticking out of the ground. And so, that's also a good time in a bottom of the market to go out and try and consolidate things.
Walk me maybe through how you think that's going to happen. From 50 now to, again, potentially 100. How long does it take you? How much money is it going to take you to get there, and how much drilling?
Sure. So we defined 50 million tons with about $37 million of drilling. And so, it's probably another, let's call it $40 million to drill out another 50 million tons to get us past 100. And the dollar value is a lot, obviously, but, that would put us into one of the, top 3, 4 in the Americas. And the time, we drilled 50,000 meters in 10 months and delivered the resource. So, we can easily do that within a year.
financing contingent then, I suppose. What are you thinking about timeline though? When do you think you can actually go out and drill that? Is it market dependent? Is it something else that you can do creatively to finance the company or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think it's market dependent because, putting a lot of money into drilling right now, are we going to see that reflected in our valuation? I would say probably not. And so what we're doing, we just closed a $21 million financing. We brought in a strategic investor, which I can't name, but it's a large corporate. And so a lot of that is going towards exploration because that's where we see that we can get the most torque on the share price. And so our Yellowknife project, we are starting the environmental work to get into the permitting regime. We're doing some updates on the metallurgy, and we're looking at things that are going to optimize economics on the PEA that we're working on. Versus we have two other projects in our portfolio. One is, again, pegmatite sticking out of the ground, ready for a drill test, so we'll drill that next summer. And our Quebec projects are exciting. This is very early stage exploration, big scale, but we have a 25 kilometer long spodumene anomaly in glacial tills or soil, and that could be the signs of a brand new district that's not outcropping. So we're going to go out and try and find the source of that, and I think that is what is going to give us torque, because a new discovery that's significant, it doesn't matter if the market is up or down, that is going to get valued.
Yeah, I understand you're not, I respect your decision, or their decision not to be named as a strategic. What kind of a strategic are we talking about, though? Is this someone who is going to keep financing you over time, or is it someone who might be more fitting operationally when it comes down to it being strategic?
I would say both, and the only thing I can really say is that it's a large corporate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll not push you too much on that. What about, so next couple of catalysts do you have coming up? You're doing all that work. Next news release, what is that going to be?
So next news release is probably results from our Quebec surface program and drill targets that we see there. And we'll be doing updates to the metallurgy, like I said, so that'll be coming out in the new year. PEA in April or May. We'll be drilling in Quebec in probably March. So it's going to be a busy year coming up.
Okay. Yeah. The met work that you're doing right now, that's going to be coming, early Q1 next year or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
What are you thinking, what is doable here for these type of deposits where you can kind of maybe give me a comp as to, that deposit, same type of deposit, they're getting these type of recoveries. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, so we did put the initial metallurgy out to the market, and across the 8 deposits that we drilled off, we're getting 79% recoveries at a 5.83% spodumene concentrate. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty comparable to our peers. I think, even a bit better than some. So as a comp, I think a good one to look at is the Mont Blanc deposit, which is Sayona and now into the merged company there. So they're running a DMS plus flotation circuit, and that's what we would be looking to do as well.
And then the final product that you get out of this, is that the type of lithium that, and it maybe sounds like a silly question, but I know you get that question a lot when you're pitching to companies. Do you have, to investors, do you have the right lithium? Is this the lithium that is going to see an uptick in demand once the lithium market comes back?
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be a spodumene concentrate that's got low deleterious elements, so it's very clean. I would say a comparable project is Sigma Lithium in Brazil, because the pegmatites are forming within the same host rocks, and a lot of the time the deposits take on some of the chemical affinities that the host rocks have. Like if you have a high iron host rock, you could get higher iron in the concentrate, and so we don't have that, so it's quite simple.
Right, okay. I think I've been through most of the questions that I wanted to ask. We know what you have going on. We know what's happening right now. What am I forgetting to ask you? What do you think is important that people should take away for Lift Power?
I think the big thing is that we've got another big year of exploration and development coming up. It's going to be exciting. We're doing new things, and I think that's really going to drive potential share price gains.
I also saw that you've ramped up marketing a lot recently going into the PA. Is that the plan for the new year as well, as you're going to be doing more exploration, kind of have more marketing?
I would say we'll probably tone the marketing down a little bit, because we were marketing around the resource and before the resource was coming out. going into the PEA, yes, we could see some more marketing around that, but around milestones and when it makes sense. But in a challenged lithium market, it doesn't necessarily make sense to spend a lot of money on marketing.
What would you be budgeting in terms of maybe ratios? Like, what percentage of your G&A budget would you say should or is a good idea to have going into marketing?
We're just doing budgets right now. Okay. So I don't have a good answer for that right now, but we ran some big marketing programs in the last year, and we had some big marketing budgets obviously associated with those, but I don't think we'll be doing that in the new year.
Okay, good. Well, Francis McDonald of Lift Power, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I'm standing here with Luke Alexander of Newcore Gold. Luke, how's the conference been for you so far? It's the end of the conference, so you probably get a good gauge of sentiment. How's it been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a really busy couple of days. We've met with a number of existing shareholders as well as prospective shareholders, and then obviously meeting with a number of our peers, other companies, management teams, so being able to talk to them about the market and how they're seeing things. So it's been a really productive couple of days.
How's the African sentiment been for you? And I'm asking kind of selfishly because majority of my portfolio is invested in Africa, some of it in your neighbors in Côte d'Ivoire. How's the sentiment toward Ghana as a jurisdiction been?
Yeah, I think Ghana is recognized as a Tier 1 jurisdiction that stands out from a number of other jurisdictions, which in recently have had some real issues on the mining side of things. When you look at Ghana, I think people recognize you've got 4 of the top 10 largest gold producers now, with Zijin coming in and buying Newmont's Akim mine for $1 billion. You've got Newmont, you've got Anglo, as well as Goldfields all there. So people recognize, having those senior companies is an example of how politically safe the jurisdiction is, as well as how safe it is from a security perspective. So people see Ghana as a great jurisdiction within Africa, but obviously with certain investors we do need to explain that Ghana is different from a number of the other countries where we have seen some issues recently.
Has it been worth it so far for you to make the trip over to Switzerland? How are you finding the conference and kind of the ROI and the marketing dollars?
Yeah, so for us, we were in London last week, we're in Switzerland this week, so we typically, every 6 months we'll be in Europe to meet with a number of our existing prospective investors as well as a number of corporates. So we find it a useful way to meet with a lot of people over a very short period of time. So overall, we find it extremely helpful to attend this conference and other conferences similar to this. And what we typically do is we'll move around to different conferences, because obviously every conference has a slightly different audience and slightly different attendees. So we find that the best way to make sure that we cast the net as wide as possible in terms of what we're doing at Newcore and how we're advancing our Enchi project.
With the attendees here in Switzerland specifically, what resonates with them the most? Is it the gold story as in kind of top-down approach? Is it again the jurisdiction? Is it the size of the project and you're potentially growing it out of here? What resonates the most?
I'd say one of the things that we've seen is the sentiment towards gold has significantly improved in the last year. I mean, that's here in Switzerland as well as in London last week, meeting with a number of institutional investors, investment banks, retail investors. So everyone has a very bullish view on gold at the moment. We had Goldman Sachs out this week who reiterated their $3,000 gold price for next year. We also have obviously Treasury starting to come off, people talking about a weaker US dollar. So the setup for the gold price is very attractive, and that has been reiterated by a lot of investors that we've met with over the last couple of weeks. And that's a real change from a year ago where, people were starting to come around, but it was still a little bit more muted for the gold space. So I'd say that's one of the biggest things that we've noticed. And then specifically when they look at our project, they recognize the tremendous leverage that we've got with our project in terms of, simply put, for every $100 move in the gold price, our project adds about $50 million to the NPV of the project. $50 million US is roughly where we're trading today. So tremendous leverage to the gold price, and I think that's really resonated with people who have really changed in terms of their sentiment towards gold.
But you are trying to grow that NPV though in the meantime. What do you have happening? Maybe the rest of the year, that's not too long, it's about a month and a half, but then into Q1, I believe the rainy season is over there, so you're probably, things are starting to moving more. What do you have coming up?
Yeah, so for us, we're fortunate we're able to drill year-round in Ghana. In the rainy season, we may stay away from the valley bottoms where water will accumulate, but we can work year-round in Ghana, so that's a real benefit for our project. In terms of kind of news flow and activity that we've got at the moment, we did announce a 10,000 meter drill program in July. You'll see that we've put out 3 sets of results representing about 21 drill holes, or about a third of that total 10,000 meter drill program. So over the next 6 months, we'll have lots of additional drill results coming out, and then we're doing a lot of other things in terms of de-risking the project towards putting out that PFS. So we're doing metallurgical test work, geotech work, hydrological work. We're doing some additional social and environmental work. So those are all key things to move us towards a PFS. But drill results, I guess, would be the biggest kind of news flow item over the next 6 months.
Specific assays over the next, when you say months, is it this year? Expecting something before Christmas?
Yeah, so we've put out two sets of results in October, a set of results in 2 weeks ago. So what we typically do, as we get batches of drill results back, we'll compile those and then put them into a news release. So I would expect there's a chance we get one more set of results back, and we'll be able to get those out to the market by year end. But if not, I would expect it to come out in early next year, so January.
Good. Well, sounds like we're going to have a lot to talk about. I do want to let you go now because I know you've had back-to-back meetings 2 days, so you're probably exhausted. What else? What am I forgetting to ask you that's really important to Newcore right now?
I think you've covered a lot of the things. I mean, I think, obviously management and board were very well aligned with shareholders. We own 18% of the business. Our last financing that we completed in September, we brought in 6 new institutional investors, so we're 45% institutionally owned. So very well funded to execute on the drill program and the de-risking of the project towards a PFS. And we're undervalued today. We see a significant re-rate opportunity as the market starts to properly price in the tremendous value that our Enchi project presents.
And that's Luke Alexander of Newcore Gold. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I'm standing here with Ben Turney, the CEO of Kavango Resources. Sir, this is actually the first time we're talking on an interview. I suppose we connected offline. Shout out to Emil, he actually connected us. Who are you, and why should I trust you with my money?
Very good question. My name is Ben Turney. I'm the CEO of Kavango Resources, and over the last 6 years I've been heavily involved in raising money for junior companies, and over the last 3.5 years I've been running Kavango as CEO. Over that time, we've invested a lot into our projects. The money that we've raised, we put the money into the ground. We've kept our board level compensation low. We make sure that we're very rigorous on making sure we keep track of our expense accounts, for example. It's one of the things that companies love to be able to hide in their G&A costs. So why can you trust me with your money? Because every cent that I get into this company, I put as much of that into the ground as I can, and just look at our track record over the last 3 years in that respect.
How's insider ownership for you? How much of your own money have you put into this company?
So I've personally put around about £170,000 into the company. I currently own about 1.2%. So all of that stock I bought and paid for. So I was a shareholder of Kavango before I joined the board. Our insider ownership is just under 8%. So, and that again, most of that's been bought on the market. Our major shareholder director is Peter Winterby. He currently owns just over 5%, having put over £500,000 into the business. So our guys have put real skin in the game, and most of those transactions have been done on market, as well as participating in direct financings.
I know you're London listed, and that's maybe not typical practice for London companies, but there's a practice that I'm always on the lookout for in the Canadian exchanges. But so that's why I'm going to ask you this question. That's why I'm prephrasing it. But are there any royalties on the projects that you or anyone else within the team own personally to your own name?
No, none at all. So we do have some royalties on our KCB projects. We have about a 1% royalty. That's part of a legacy from an old JV that we had, but no, we have nothing like that in our business at all. Everything is purely owned solely by Kavango. There's none of those kind of chicanery of sort of deals and side deals and ground that's next door to our ground that any of us own. We have no conflicts of interest like that.
Having mentioned the LSE, I know you're not going to like that question. That's why I'm going to ask it. Why LSE though? Why don't you? I mean, resource company. You're in Africa. I kind of get the connection there, but why not the TSX-V? Either move or dual listing. Is it in the books? And talk to me about that.
So it's a legacy from when the company first listed in 2018 before I joined the board. So the company's home has always been London, but what you're quite rightly alluding to is just how difficult trading has become on our home exchange. It's become very difficult to raise money. We're seeing the highest rate of failure there's ever been in this space with the number of companies that have delisted over the course of this year. So the trading environment in London at the moment is absolutely brutal. We're committed to staying in London for now. Our major shareholder, the Consagras, through their pure bond vehicle, they like to see us listed on the London Stock Exchange. It gives them a degree of comfort, and while they're cornerstone in the company, it does make sense for us to remain there. In many ways, we're almost like a PE business that happens to be listed. That's how we are currently financed. But longer term, of course, we're going to have to look at our options. Unless things do really start to improve in London, we see a pickup in volume, we see improvement in share prices, and we see the funding environment start to improve. It is actually getting to the point where we do have to start to ask ourselves, is it worth remaining in London?
Yeah, that's what I ask myself all the time when I find a company that I like the asset of, and so that's a good point. Maybe something we can talk about more at length, and I hope we can sit down for a longer conversation at a certain point. Looked at your website obviously multiple times. We're talking Botswana, Zimbabwe. Which one of those two is going to make me money if I bought stock today?
Zimbabwe. Hands down Zimbabwe. I've moved down to Zimbabwe to lead the business from the ground. I now live in Bulawayo, and the progress that we're making there, the speed at which our team has moved, how quickly we've not only made discoveries, but discoveries that we are now bringing into larger scale production. We're going to see significant increase in our output over the next 12 months, and in parallel to that, once we've increased our production, we'll also be moving into the more advanced and sophisticated technical feasibility studies to take us into even larger scale mining. It's really quite hard to quantify just how big the opportunity is in Zimbabwe, and there aren't any companies like us. So we have a significant first mover advantage. We've embedded ourselves strongly in the local community, in the local society, and we believe we build a really powerful foundation for really strong growth in the future. We have a 30-year vision for this business, and I believe we're going to build a very, very big gold development company.
Growth is not cheap though. Comes at a cost. How's money for you right now, and how much money do you think it's going to take you to get to that next stage where you're answering to put it in a cliche way, where you're answering the unanswered question?
Well, we've been incredibly fortunate to have the backing of the Consagras. They put £11.5 million into the company over the last 2 years. They're now our 58% shareholder. They've recently put a convertible loan into us to take us through the next stage of development on our mine development plans. So from a financing perspective, I haven't got any concerns for our business. Having them as our cornerstone and having come this far, the risk capital's now being deployed. So they've made the riskiest move getting us up to this point. The next stage is where we're moving into resource drilling and mine development, and that's where the serious cash flows start coming in. So from a financing perspective, I feel very confident. We also have a lot of interest from local investors in Zimbabwe as well, and we're in advanced talks with a number of pension funds down there with a view to them investing in our company ahead of listing on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange.
Oh, okay, that's another interesting point, because I heard about that too, I think. How much money do you think you're going to have to spend, though, on resource drilling? How is that going to come in, kind of in bits and pieces, I suppose? But walk me through the chronology of that spend, if you will.
So we're looking now at a $20 million investment, which will be cornerstoned by our major investor, together with another $5 million from the one pension fund in Zim, and another $1.5 million that's already been earmarked from other investors who we know personally. So we've got about another $3.5 million that we're looking now to raise over the coming weeks. As soon as we've done that, we'll be putting that into a prospectus, then issuing that onto the market and publishing it. So I'm expecting our exploration and development budget over the next 18 months is going to be in the region of about 20 million US.
Right. Okay. There's a lot of follow-up questions I could have here, but I know you're probably looking to go because it's the end of the day for you as well.
It's been a long day.
Hopefully we can. How many meetings did you have?
I've been fully booked all day. I mean, I normally find whenever I turn up to these things, I'm back-to-back, so I've had at least a dozen meetings today with various people. It's been a fantastic event to come to. It's certainly one of the best I've attended. The quality of the meetings and the level of interest that there is, it's been really quite exciting, so I'm glad we made it to come all this way.
Well, what are you hoping to get out of it, though? And is it because again, you joined the company recently, so you probably have a lot of share structure rebuilding to do, and what are you hoping to get out of that, and what's that share structure building strategy that you're going for?
So I've got quite a generous options package, which kick in at about 1.2 pence. Quite simply, my goal is to become rich through this company. So with the plan that we have, I'm looking to build a very big business that sees significant share price appreciation over the coming years. The foundation that we've put in place in Zimbabwe, it's not conventional, and I don't think most of the market understands it yet. And while we've been punished in the market so far from a share price perspective, I'm not too concerned about that today because I see the progress on the ground. What's going to really set us apart from our competitors will be the free cash flow that we start throwing off from the end of next year. And from that point, we then become a company with significant blue sky upside, both in Botswana and in Zimbabwe through our exploration efforts. But much more importantly than that, we'll be able to pay for that ourselves. We'll be able to stand on our own 2 feet. The whole value proposition in this business over the next 2 years is going to transform.
Yeah. What I mean when I ask you how you want to build the shareholder, the share registry, if you will, is I'm thinking more along the lines of what's kind of the split that you want to have between institutions. You have that cornerstone investor that you told me about, but retail, who are you really targeting at this conference? And more specifically, let me tell you why I'm asking you that, because I want to make sure that you're here with a purpose, with a goal, and that you're getting your money's worth, getting your shareholders, and again, you included, your own money's worth out of this conference.
So as I said earlier, at the moment, the way I view Kavango is we're more like a private equity funded business that happens to be listed. So my goal now is to strengthen our shareholder register further to bring some more institutional long-term holders on. We currently have about 66% of our stock that's held by insiders, so that includes the Consagras 58% and the 8% held by the board. I'd like to see that level up to about the 75% level from institutional holders in Europe, and then with the Zimbabwe investment that's coming in, that's another 12.5% that we'll be looking to sell to pension funds down there. So we'll be primarily dominated by institutional holders, but as I say, we're not doing things conventionally. We're not looking to build a stock that just gets ramped into the retail market, spikes and then comes back down. We're looking to deliver outsized fundamental returns over a very long period of time. So it's a long-term vision, a long-term plan, but with everything that we put in place and with the financing that we now are about to close on, if everything goes to plan on the ground and we can deliver our operational targets and start generating the gold production that we believe our team can deliver, then things really are going to look fantastic for this business moving forward.
Good. And again, hopefully we can sit down for a longer conversation. I can get a little bit more in-depth on what you're doing there. Last question before I let you go. Where did you learn how to speak? I mean, you haven't stuttered once. You haven't had any ums and buts. How are you speaking so fluently?
I think I love the sound of my own voice. I keep getting told by everybody who knows me. So I think it's just practice. But thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.